Good evening, everybody. Welcome. It's the State of the Union night in Washington and around the world, really, because the world's eyes will be on this speech. President Trump expected leaving the White House in just a few moments to head up to Capitol Hill for his first official State of the Union address. And this is special coverage from Two-Way and the Daily Mail, partnering tonight to bring you coverage like no other that you're a part of. So throughout the evening, we'll talk to you before the president's speech. Then we'll hear the Democratic response. And then we'd love to have you participate. So if you're here on the platform either now or after the president's speech and the Democratic response and you want to be part of the conversation, we'd love to have you, whether you're someone who joins us regularly or you're new to the platform tonight. Happy to have you here and very happy to be partnering with the Daily Mail on this coverage, including three great reporters who are with us today. Wills Robinson's here, U.S. Executive Editor for the Mail, Nikki Schwab, the Chief Campaign Correspondent, and Jon Michael Raasch is here, also the U.S. political reporter. Welcome to you all. And we need to lead with the lead in truth in advertising. If you don't have caffeine or gummy bears or something else that keeps you alert with you, you need to, because all four of us are picking up that this speech could be quite lengthy. Not just quite lengthy by Bill Clinton or Donald Trump standards, but quite lengthy the standards of, the last season finale of some show that's usually 2 hours and instead is 3. Nikki, where are you now on length at this point?
I think that my original bet is probably going to be accurate. I think that it's going to be very, very long, and that's what we've heard. So buckle up, everybody.
Yeah. Now we've heard when we say very long,
hours. We lost audio.
Yeah. Jon Michael, do you hear me?
Oh, I got you now. Yes, sir.
Yeah. We hear this could be longer than 2 hours. Not just, again, long by normal State of the Union long, but this could be more than 2 hours, correct?
Oh, yeah, no, I think that it could easily drift well over that, too. And you know the president loves to ramble, and if he gets bored with his own speech, then he's not afraid to make up his own on the spot.
Yeah. Wills, if it's longer than that, first of all, I don't think the hockey team will stay for a 3-hour speech. But if it's longer than 95 minutes, it starts to become a different beast, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. And you've got to hold the audience's attention. And that's just not people in the room, but it's also the TV audience at home. And if it's pushing 90 minutes and 2 hours, you're talking 11 o'clock on the East Coast. I mean, 10 o'clock in Central Time, 9 p.m. On the West Coast, which is a bit more palatable. But he's got to be keeping the audience on the edge of their seat. He can't just go and talk about his achievements. As we've said before, he can't just go on with his personal anecdotes, which he does love to do. He needs to hook people in with what he's going to do in the next with the final 2 years of his presidency. He needs to tell the voters what he's going to do before the midterms. So, if you can keep people tuned in for 2 hours, it will be an impressive speech and a historic speech.
Yeah, he's just entered the limo, the so-called beast, to head up to Capitol Hill with the First Lady, and we were discussing right before we started, his children, at least some of his children will be there, maybe all of them will be there. This is a big night in the Trump household. There's not much news going on this evening. Gavin Newsom's on his book tour and is just on a rampage on X this evening, attacking the president with his all-cap style. But there was a briefing today by the Secretary of State for the so-called Gang of Eight, and there's really nothing the president could do in the hall tonight that's as big as real-world events. It is, in the end, just a speech. And this question of what to do about Iran hovers over. Don't expect it to be a big part of this speech, but I want to show you briefly Senator Schumer, one of the bipartisan congressional leaders who were briefed earlier today. And people are struck by Senator Schumer, who has been a hawk on Iran forever. He's a big supporter of Israel, a big hawk on Iran. Here's Senator Schumer after the closed-door briefing from Secretary Rubio for congressional leadership. Number 3, please.
Closed-door briefings are fine, but the administration has to make its case to the American people as something as important as this.
What do you expect?
So, Wills, that's being interpreted as he was convinced or shaken or at least focused by what Secretary Rubio told him, and now is saying, well, this is a public case, needs to be made publicly. Is that how you interpret what the senator said?
I think there's also you can look at that with a hint of skepticism because this was done hours before one of the biggest political moments of the career. And if Chuck Schumer, who has been doing this for decades, he knows that he can score some quick political points and try and force Trump into saying something more than he has to on Iran. I still think Trump's going to keep Iran very close to the chest. As he said previously, he wants Iran to make a deal. He's very keen for Iran to make a deal. But if they don't agree to not produce a nuclear weapon, then he's going to have to do something about it. And I don't think tonight you're going to hear much more than that. After the Gang of Eight, we'll see. But I still think that Trump is very much head down, and I think it's going to be domestic focused. But beyond the State of the Union and over the next few days, you might see a very different picture when it comes to Iran.
Nikki, at the lunch today with the network anchors, they were allowed to, some of it was put on the record, including the president saying about Iran that Iran seems to very much want a deal. Do you think the members of Congress will give him bipartisan support in the room tonight on foreign policy, like on Iran, like on Russia, Ukraine, if he talks about that, like on China? There's, in theory, they don't really disagree very much, at least some Democrats, with the president on these issues.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. That's a good question because I don't know if the Democrats are going to play ball with anything the president says tonight at the speech, the ones that actually show up. But I mean, I think especially on Ukraine, it depends on how wholesome his support is. If he shows wholesome support for Ukraine and Zelensky, I mean, I have a feeling that actually will not be something that is sort of one of the sort of major headlines out of the speech. It seems like it's going to probably get buried a bit. I think on Iran, I think Congress is going to have to be careful, but also the Schumer thing was sort of interesting because I think when it comes to Trump and Iran, he's not a guy that wants to, own a war like George W. Bush owned Iraq, right? I think that like with Iran, with Trump, you would probably want to see him, you most likely would see him do sort of a targeted strike. But the way that Schumer was acting today made it sound like it was a much larger scale strike that they were talking about. And that's what I walked away thinking from that commentary.
The vice president's in the chamber, so he's arrived there, and John Thune is with him, escorting him in. Here's the first excerpt. This is courtesy of Peter Doocy at Fox News. From the president. Jon Michael, would love to know what you think about this. When it comes to the corruption that is plundering America, there's been no more stunning example than Minnesota, where members of the Somali community have pillaged an estimated $19 billion from the American taxpayer.
Yeah, I think that this just goes to show that the president is still fixated on attacking his enemies, right? He's got to have some sort of foil, and the Somali community in Minnesota has been one of the latest ones. That and Ilhan Omar, the representative, the Democratic representative from there. So he's definitely going to lean back on some old tropes. I wouldn't be surprised if you hear him bring up sleepy Joe Biden, talk about the auto pen, and go back to kind of the same punching bags that he always has. So, I mean, just to hear that he's going to talk about this whole fraud situation is just one small anecdote that I think he's going to try to blow up into a larger, conversation about fraud across the country and how maybe some Democrats, potentially Tim Walz, other folks, are implicated. He's talked about that in the past, and I'm sure he's going to love to punch at them from behind the lectern today.
Yeah,
they got Minneapolis as well.
Just
it's a win that Trump can go to because he sent Tom Homan in after the debacle with Kristi Noem and the shooting, and that is a victory that he can go back to. And that's one of the themes that Trump is going to bring up tonight. He's going to go, what has he done successfully? He's going to revert back, and that's one of his fallbacks. And Minneapolis is a very classic example of what Trump can do for a victory, and also, as Jon Michael said, to go after who he believes are essentially villains against his policy and the MAGA agenda.
Yeah. So we're getting our first look at the floor now. You see the vice president there talking to the Joint Chiefs. Couple things we're told by reporters in the room. First, the Democratic side, where the Democratic members are sitting, is not full. Typically, both sides would be full, but we know lots of Democrats are skipping it. We'll see if they've got seat fillers like they do at the Oscars, so there are no empty seats for the president. And the other thing is we're told that the Democratic leadership is breaking tradition, and I don't believe they did this in any previous Trump speech. They're not going to escort the president in. Typically, you'll see leadership of both parties leading from the edge of the chamber, off the floor, onto the dais, led by members of both parties. We're told by at least one journalist that's not going to happen. There you see the vice president and the Speaker of the House. There, I predict we'll have a competition to see who can stand the fastest in rapturous applause for the president's applause lines. The hockey team is going to be a big issue tonight, and it shows how divisive everything is in Donald Trump's Washington, that this is considered, a political issue. In a normal presidency, Nikki, everybody would be so excited to see them and,
Yep.
and would applaud without considering whether it's the benefit of Donald Trump or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I mean, Trump has had these battles with athletes like throughout both of his terms, but hockey players have never been like part of that. And so hockey teams, like the NHL teams who've come to the White House have usually come in absolutely unscathed. So it's funny that, this time around it's a bigger issue, but also, I mean, I know that people were pretty upset about and it was a joke that Trump had made about, having to invite the women to the White House as well. But I think that, some of the hockey players are getting the brunt of the blame for that as well. So it's sort of a double-pronged thing of them just showing up, but also the fact that that joke was made.
Yep. The president's motorcade is arriving on Capitol Hill right now, so we may see him walk in. Let's bring in members of the community. Again, if you want to be part of the conversation, questions for my colleagues from the Daily Mail, or if you'd like to just tell us your own preview of tonight, please do. We'll start with Alan. Alan, tell folks who don't know where you are after you unmute and what's on your mind for Nikki and Wills and Jon Michael.
Oh, I'm just excited. This is like Super Bowl for political junkies like me. I'm in Tallahassee, Florida, so just looking forward to hearing what the president has to say, seeing the reactions from both sides of the aisle, and looking forward to the commentary from everyone.
Alan,
And
thank you for that.
also looking forward to the post show that I'm hosting after the State of the Union because I'm a little bit crazy, Mark. So.
All right. Alan, thank you for that. Thank you for being here. Grateful to you. Okay, let's go to Chad. Chad, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are what's on your mind for Wills and Jon Michael and for Nikki.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Hey, I'm excited about it. I mean, it sounds silly, but I'm just like Alan. It's election night, State of the Union. This is what I get up for. I love this kind of stuff, and I don't know why. I can't explain it. In about hour or two, I'll be totally done.
Yeah.
Bottom
Chad,
line is,
yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask you, what's one issue you want the president to talk about tonight?
Oh my God, one issue. There's so many issues I wanted to talk about. The problem is, there's my son. He wants to say hi. The problem is, I don't believe he'll stay on message for anything. And I am conservative. I tend to vote on the conservative side, and I think I missed my calling to be maybe in comms or something like that, because I just want. I hear him say what he says about affordability. He says we want affordability. And it seems like a very simple message to me. All he has to say is they talk about affordability, we do something about affordability.
Yeah.
Same thing with immigration. They talk about immigration, we do something about the borders, right? We see that nobody cared about the border for 4 years. We did something about it. It was a choice. It didn't take an act of Congress. We just did something about it. That's all he has to say. But he continues to, but everything has to be, he meanders and stuff like that. So that's what will drive me crazy more than likely. However, all that to say,
yes,
I hope for a more unifying speech. I'm doubtful that I'll get it. I wish the Dems wouldn't just boycott it. I think that's silly. I think it's ignorant. I think it's very stupid. I think it's very dumb to do that. And I think what we want is stuff like the gold. You win the gold and they get there, the hockey team gets there, and that's going to be a unifying moment. But it won't be, because now all day today, all I've seen is how, the hockey team, from the media, is that it was great until it wasn't. And now they're just, a bunch of conservative goons. So
yeah.
I don't know. I want to be
Chad.
hopeful about it, but we'll see.
Thank you, Chad. Grateful to you. Just caught a glimpse of Senator Fetterman on the floor, and I'm here to report to you he's wearing a necktie. So
That's a first, isn't it?
That is definitely, that must be a first.
I've seen him in a tie.
No,
but
I think he's done suits before.
Yeah, but not regularly, and certainly normally doesn't accommodate to what's happening. Colleen, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind for Wills and Nikki and Jon Michael.
Hey, Mark. Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. Just to say, I'm excited about tonight. I really hope Trump does not speak for 2 hours and ramble on, as I hope we all don't. But I hope, and I also hope as a Democrat that the Democrats do not, that I hope they do clap for the hockey team and support the hockey team and don't act childish. I hope Trump frames Iran in a way that makes sense to Americans and make it a national security issue, because that attack is imminent, and I think it needs to be explained to the people in a clear, concise way if he can do that. And I also think another outlier here will be healthcare, because I heard he's going to speak about healthcare. And I hope the Democrats, he has said twice in the last couple of months that he wants to go up against the insurance companies and the pharmaceutical companies, even though it will upset some of his friends. And I hope the Democrats, I've said to some of them, why don't they seize that and work with him and, try to get something done with healthcare, because he's one person that can actually get something done. So I hope that's something that can be seized this evening.
Thank you, Colleen. Wills, question or comment for Colleen?
So, Colleen, is there anything specific, on healthcare that you may want him to address?
Well, I mean, he has said, like I said, he said in Davos and then in another speech in December that he wants, as you know, our healthcare system, we spend 14,000 per person here compared to say 6,000 in the UK and Europe per person, and we have worse health outcomes and more cancer, more diabetes, and all that kind of stuff. So basically, the gap is going to the insurance companies. So he has said he's willing to take them on to reduce costs. He's already done that with pharmaceuticals. And I think we should have more of a kind of universal hybrid kind of healthcare system here with better outcomes. We're the richest country in the history of the world, and we should have better healthcare for our citizens like they have in Europe, and maybe even better than that. So, and he is someone who can push it through, because he's the only one who will go up against the insurance companies and the pharmaceutical companies.
Well, you're talking to a Brit here, obviously, so I know a little bit about a universal healthcare system. So it does have some of its pitfalls, but the affordability issue is the heart of it, especially with the insurance companies seemingly running rampant, but basically charging whatever they want with these premiums, and it's getting worse. And it fits right back into the affordability issue that's pretty much at the heart of what the midterms is going to be. So it's a very good point, and it's something that he needs to hit. If he comes out strong against these insurance companies, then he could score some good points, especially among independents.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's a good issue. Yeah.
Yep. Colleen, thank you. Grateful to you. Okay. Amy, welcome, and tell folks who don't know after you unmute where you are, what's on your mind for our group here.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm here in Virginia, and I'm really hoping to hear about childcare, housing, healthcare / workforce issues.
That's a good list. Jon Michael, thoughts on that list?
I think Trump will definitely talk about housing. I'm not sure about childcare. That's not a topic I've heard him address at all, really. But on terms of housing, I know that he's talked in the past at different White House events, from the Oval Office to prepared remarks, about how he's trying to bring the cost of housing down. Now, is that actually happening? I think, you can be the judge of that and, look at your pocketbook and see what the mortgage rates are. I know that, they've often touted how mortgage rates are lower than they were under Joe Biden. Is that a cause of the COVID market, or is that, something that Trump did? That's also, you can decide on that. But I would be expected to hear about housing. Healthcare, I'm sure he's going to talk about as well. He's got a heavy lift to talk about the economy, make everyone believe that it's going well for them. That's going to be his number one issue in the midterms. Obviously, immigration. He's been in a tough spot with that, with what happened in Minnesota and the tumult over at DHS. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if he can really drive home that he's bringing down the cost of homes, bringing down healthcare costs, reinvigorating the economy, that's probably going to be his best bet. Now, whether or not people believe him, that's a whole different question.
Yeah. Nikki.
When I hear you talk about childcare, it sort of harkens back to his first term, where sort of Ivanka was shepherding some of those issues, maybe not necessarily the affordability of childcare, but that was something that I know that the Biden administration was trying to take on, and not so successfully, but at least like things like paid family leave. And the fact that we're not talking about childcare, I think, sort of shows, there's a sort of Ivanka-sized hole in the White House, because she was good on those types of issues. And there hasn't really been that kind of replacement in Trump 2.0.
Yeah. Amy, thank you. Grateful to you. Thank you for being part of Two-Way. We're waiting now to see some prominent Democrats in the chamber. You can see Steny Hoyer, the former Democratic leader. You can see Hakeem Jeffries. So there are obviously prominent Democrats there, but many are not. And I predicted earlier, I thought probably most Democrats in the chamber would adhere to Hakeem Jeffries' plea that they not heckle. But what about their guests, Nikki? Some of these guests are not, they've never been in a situation like that. And a lot of them were chosen because they don't like Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean, that would be sort of a quite a moment, because I can't recall a guest actually getting rowdy at the State of the Union. But with Epstein victims in the audience, that's something to definitely look out for.
Yep. Okay, let's listen to the Speaker of the House.
From Pennsylvania, Mr. Reschenthaler. The gentleman from Utah, Mr. Moore. The gentlewoman from Indiana, Mrs. Houchin. The gentleman from Oklahoma, Mr. Hearn. The gentleman from New York, Mr. Jeffries. The gentleman from California, Mr. Aguilar. The gentleman from California, Mr. Liu. The gentlewoman from Washington, Mrs. Delbene. The gentlewoman from Michigan, Mrs. Dingle.
All right, so contrary to what some had reported,
the President of the Senate,
Democrats
at
are
the
going to
direction
bring
of
him
that body, appoints the following senators as members of the Committee on the part of the Senate to escort the President of the United States into the House chamber. The Senator from South Dakota, Mr. Thune. The Senator from Wyoming, Mr. Barrasso. The Senator from Arkansas, Mr. Cotton. The Senator from West Virginia, Mrs. Capito. The Senator from Oklahoma, Mr. Lankford. The Senator from South Carolina, Mr. Scott. The Senator from New York, Mr. Schumer. The Senator from Illinois, Mr. Durbin. And the Senator from Minnesota, Ms. Klobuchar.
The members of the Escort Committee will exit the chamber through the lobby doors.
And I say this not joking. These hockey players, I don't think, thought they were going to be sitting in a hall for
Mr.
2.5
Speaker,
hours.
the acting dean of the Diplomatic Corps.
And were they partying in Miami last night, Mark?
Yeah,
Is that
yeah,
right?
Yeah, so they go from that. So, some people are hoping.
I missed my invite.
Some people are
personally.
Some people are hoping that the president acknowledges them in the first 20 minutes and then excuses them, so they don't have to stay for the whole thing. Because again, I don't know if they thought this through, but it's not probably their ideal way to spend several hours listening to the president give a speech.
And those decorum rules are kind of pesky, right? You got to sit there, be quiet, can't film if you're in the chamber. Doesn't sound as fun as maybe the trip to the White House and time in the Oval Office.
Yeah. So we're waiting now for the arrival of the president. He is at the Capitol. And we're also waiting to see the Supreme Court justices and how many Supreme Court justices end up showing up. They don't usually, typically all 9 don't go. But obviously in the wake of the ruling on tariffs is a particular focus. Here's the diplomatic corps arriving. Particular focus on who's going to be there for the Supreme Court. We got some talking points from the White House earlier. Not clear that this is an outline of the speech, but Jon Michael, based on those talking points, I don't know if you had a chance to look through them. This looks like the kind of division between domestic and international we were expecting, maybe 2/3, 1/3.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, if he was smart, he'd go more on the domestic side, right? International side, it's not going to serve him as well, I think, in the midterm season. He's got to really hone in on trying to drive home what he's done for voters in the U.S. in these congressional districts that are going to be so consequential to his next couple of years in power. Now, obviously, he may have to address the thing with Iran. He's got to have a couple lines on that in there. But it's also very obvious about what's happening, right? There's a massive military buildup. They're sending 2 aircraft carriers over there. There's news reports about them every single day that they're getting into position for something. Now, what that is, we don't know yet. Maybe the president will talk about that tonight. But I don't think there's an appetite for the average American voter to tune in to hear the president maybe once in the year or, the annual occasion that this is, and to hear about impending war. I don't think that would be a wise way for the president to spend his time. If anything, that should be an address maybe from the White House or later on. But it is, clearly the background of this event.
Okay. Coming in now, let's see who this next group will be. This is some congressional leaders. Nikki, the Democrats have tried very hard. No signs, no heckling, no booing. What are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to cheer when they agree, like happened in years gone by, or just stay silent? What's the Schumer-Jeffries instruction?
I'm not exactly sure about that, but if I were advising them, I would tell them that they should maybe look bored. I mean, that would get under Trump's skin, I think, more than heckling or anything else, especially if he goes, 2, 3 hours long. But I do think that, standing when it's appropriate helps them politically. Because I know in the past when they haven't done that, and then it's like, why didn't they stand for a wounded warrior? It just looks bad. And as our listeners were talking about at the 5 p.m. hour, I think people want civility back in politics. People want bipartisanship. I think that is sort of agreeable to most Americans. And so if Democrats are able to sort of pull off that optically tonight, that would be a huge win for them ahead of these midterms.
I see Justice Roberts there. I see Elena Kagan. I see Brett Kavanaugh. I see Amy Coney Barrett. That may be it. 1, 2, 3, just a few justices there. So, but including 2 who voted. I don't see Gorsuch, but there are at least 2 who voted against the president. I think I see the 4 justices, and that's it. Okay, let's bring in more members of the community here as we wait for the president to be announced in. Professor Kenny, welcome in. Thank you for being here. Unmute and tell everybody what's on your mind.
Hi, everyone. I'm just curious to see how Trump handles the Supreme Court if he starts talking about tariffs. And also, I'm interested if we are, if he spoke to the Gang of 8 today, are we imminent with Iran? And if he's going to address any of it today, I'm just interested to see that stuff.
Yeah. Thoughts, group?
I think the briefing of the 8 in Congress today is a pretty significant public, event. Obviously, it's highly publicized. People on the Hill are, chasing them down, trying to get comment from them. I've been in, in those situations trying to get comment from members leaving those classified briefings. So it's a very public statement. I think that it should be noted. The CIA director went over to the Hill and chatted with all these lawmakers. So clearly wanted to tell them something that he couldn't just email.
All right. Other thoughts?
Well, just going back to the Supreme Court, only 4 justices are appearing tonight, so which out of 9 is pretty significant. And we're going back to your point about how he's going to address the Supreme Court. One of the things that he made clear about tariffs is that he's still going to go through with them. He's just going to find another way to do it. I would expect to hear some sort of attack on the Supreme Court, some sort of insult. He won't go too overboard because I think people can see through the fact that he is just trying to score political points by insulting the Supreme Court justices. I think he said that those who voted against the tariffs, their families should be embarrassed by them, which was obviously an angry reaction and to the rejection of one of his biggest policies. So you might hear something, you might hear a little dig, but it's not going to be a full-throated attack as we saw at the end of last week when the court did strike down the tariffs, because he has a plan to do it without them. And whether that comes into any legal issues down the line is another matter.
Yeah, he's had several days to calm down. I was actually in that briefing on Friday where he was sort of blowing a gasket at the Supreme Court, and now he's had a couple of days to sort of chill out over that. Though the fact that Amy Coney Barrett is there tonight, might get him a little riled up again. But also the talking points that have been circulating. They do have a big section on the Supreme Court and tariffs, and more so sort of touting how well the tariffs have worked for the U.S. and how the policy needs to be remain in place. So I think that we'll definitely see him talking tariffs. Whether or not he'll give a huge smackdown to the SCOTUS justices in the audience, that remains to be seen.
Yeah, Professor Kenny, thank you. You saw there the First Lady's box with all of the children of the president and the First Lady. The justices, I think 4 justices is about the norm. Wills, I may be wrong, but what you don't normally see is the number of Democratic members who went over to shake their hands. A large number of Democrat members of the House and Senate have gone over. So here's the cabinet. We'll play our favorite game here of who's not there. Which cabinet member is the one who's supposed to stay aside? It's not going to be Marco Rubio or Scott Bessent. We know that. or
Last year, I know
or
the
the Attorney
designated
General?
survivor was Doug Collins, the Secretary of the VA. I've been tracking who's there, who's not. One person that I think is really interesting that I'm spotting is Representative Al Green, who, as you recall, last year was kicked out of the State of the Union after heckling Trump, having his cane being waved in the air, screaming at the president. So surprised to see him back. Maybe we'll see him light it up again.
Yeah, not a boycotter. Anyway, as the cabinet comes in, we'll try to figure out who is not there. Again, you're watching our coverage here. This is a special broadcast from Two-Way and our colleagues at the Daily Mail. We'll be with you till the president begins. Then you can stay on the platform or on our YouTube feed and watch the speech with us. If there's something happens in the chamber, an altercation or some disruption or a long prolonged period of applause or quiet, we'll be here to chime in respectfully, just to help annotate it a little bit for you to make sure you're getting the latest information. And then when the president concludes, we'll all reconvene right here on the platform or wherever you're watching. And then after a few moments, we'll be joined by the governor of Virginia, Governor Spanberger. She'll give her response. And then we'll all reconvene. And we welcome your participation then, as we've been doing all along. So please come with us. Now, if it's a 3-hour speech, I know some of you will go to bed, but we'll still be here. So feel free to watch with us and continue to participate, as many of you do, in the chat here on the platform, on X or on YouTube. You can continue to comment, and we'll engage with you when we can. No smack in the chat, though, just peace, love, and understanding. The cabinet continues to file in. I see the Secretary of Transportation there, so we can cross them off the list. And members of the cabinet going by and shaking the hands of the Joint Chiefs and of the Supreme Court justices, including the Attorney General Bondi, and I saw at least one other cabinet member go over. And I have to say that Amy Coney Barrett looks a little deer in the headlights to me as people are coming over to her. First Lady's box, we're still waiting to find out who's going to be in there with her and be recognized by the president. And there's Howard Lutnick, I see, so he's not the one missing. And there's Kristi Noem. I think one of you thought maybe Kristi Noem would be absent, but she's not.
That was me earlier.
Yeah. So you cross her off the list. Cross off Howard Lutnick. I haven't seen Chris Wright, the Energy Secretary. So maybe it's him. We'll see. The president usually comes right after the cabinet, so he'll be here soon. Let's try to get a couple more folks in if we can. Young, welcome in. Unmute. Tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind for our colleagues at the Daily Mail.
Yeah, I'm calling in from Chappaqua, New York. My primary interest is on how he presents Iran and the justification of Iran. I think one of our community members has brought this up, and I think that's very important for a lot of the viewers in America. So I think that's important. But the other thing, I had a side question, and that is, do you think he'll bring up Epstein? I didn't think so. I bring this up because Bill and Hillary Clinton is having their oversight committee right here, very close to where I live. So I didn't think it'd be in his interest to bring this up, but he's always very good with trying to score points with whatever is out there and that's active.
I think it's going to be interesting to see whether or not he actually goes after Bill or Hillary. I know that he's kind of waffled on that position in the past. I know I did an article about this maybe a couple weeks ago, but in November, he actually ordered Pam Bondi to do an investigation into Bill Clinton and his ties to Epstein. He put that in a Truth Social post. But just recently, he was asked in an interview in the Oval Office about what he thought about the ongoing oversight investigation that Congress is doing. And he said that he didn't really like it, and that it made him feel a little bit uncomfortable that they were going after Bill Clinton, which was a very interesting response after just 2 months before ordering an investigation into Bill Clinton's Epstein ties. So I think he'd probably want to get away from that. It seems to be that, the cross that's always hanging around his neck and that he's not really able to escape from. But if he brings it up himself, maybe that shows a sign of maturity and kind of rounding the corner on the matter. But I wouldn't count on it.
He's actually said he feels sorry for Bill Clinton in a couple of posts. He thinks he's been, in a sense, he was being targeted. I don't think he's going to mention Epstein, but I think that if he's heckled by the Democrats, who a lot of them have Epstein survivors, then he may be forced to respond to it. And then if he's caught in a moment and he's frustrated, then he may just go on a bit of a tangent about it and say one of the lines is that it is a Democrat hoax, and the fact that it is Bill, the likes of Bill and Hillary Clinton, and even Bill Gates, who have been caught up in this, and he has been, for the time being, left relatively unscathed by it.
Yeah. Young, thank you. Grateful to you. Thank you for being part of Two-Way. and look forward to your Chappaqua getting your moment in the sun with the Clintons back-to-back days. Dan, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are what's on your mind for Nikki and for Wills and for Jon Michael.
Oh, hey. Yeah, so this president has never respected the office that he holds. He's still litigating 2020. He didn't show up to Biden's inauguration. Any Democrat that wants to protest tonight, I applaud them. That's all.
Dan, you applaud people protesting in the hall or protest by being absent?
By being absent.
Yeah. What about heckling in the hall? How do you feel about that?
I'm not a fan of it, but you know what? I think he would do I think he would do it if he was in Congress. So, that's how I feel.
Nikki, Jon Michael, or Wills, any questions or comments for Dan?
I think Nikki, after you. Sorry.
Oh, I was saying, Dan, like, how do you think the Democrats, if you were their strategist, how would you tell them to react?
Just follow their hearts. If they want to protest him, they should. If they want to say something, they should. Absolutely.
Dan, thank you. Grateful to you for being part of Two-Way. I want to show you a picture. A number of members of Congress post the pictures of their guests who they're bringing with them online, and this one was pretty interesting. Number 5, please. Lindsey Graham, Republican Senator of South Carolina, is bringing David Ellison, the leader of Paramount. There's the photo of the two of them, thumbs up in Senator Graham's office. Interesting because just about an hour ago, it came out that Warner Brothers now says that the offer from Paramount is potentially better than the offer from Netflix to buy Paramount. And so big night for David Ellison to get to be in there, and I'm sure the president will see him. Here's the president in the hall. Let's take down number 5, please, and let's go. The president's entered the chamber, and now we'll watch to see who gets the presidential handshakes, including some Democrats who, no matter how they feel about Donald Trump, for some reason still want to shake his hand on this night. Escorted by John Thune, by Steve Scalise. And you see the president making his way through. Guys, and Nikki, do you think looks like a man who's ready to give a 3-hour speech?
It's hard
I think
to
he
tell.
looks jazzed. Look at him
Yeah.
shaking those hands. He's working the crowd. He's excited. He's going to take his time, I'm sure. Really embrace this moment. He loves to be able to connect with people, it seems, and these people in Congress, they always refer to him as kind of their great inspiration. And he only has so many times a year where he can really be celebrated by these folks. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him really go slow, let it all in, and shake a lot of hands, take some selfies.
I do think. This is what Donald Trump has done all his life. He's been shaking hands. And so this is the moment, whether the people here shaking hands, whether they love him or whether they absolutely hate him, this is what he laps. This is what he relishes. This is what he laps up. And he's very good at it. Even if a Democrat comes across the line, you might see some lip reading after the fact. We'll do some lip reading during the speech. But even if a Democrat says something pretty crass to him, he's going to turn back and he'll have some sort of retort. And sometimes it's smart. So this is what he does.
Just based on the look in Justice Coney Barrett's face, I think when the president sees her, he's going to say something. I'm not sure if he's going to stop and talk to her, but I think he's going to find it irresistible to make some sort of crack, whether it's in the teleprompter or not. Lots of posing for selfies.
Agreeing with the protest.
Yeah.
I held up a sign right in Trump's face. I couldn't see what it was, but he's off to a hot start.
We'll look on Twitter to see whether anybody's caught a look at that sign. I'm looking at a number of angles, and I did not see it. President, actually, by the standards of presidents moving through, he's actually moving at a pretty good clip, shaking some hands, but not stopping to talk to people, as Bill Clinton did and others have done on occasion. He's really moving through quickly. So we'll have him up there before too long, and it's 9:08 Eastern Time, and we know the speech will go for long enough that it's going to go past 10:30. I think that's fair to say.
He just passed the Supreme Court justices.
Yep. He's looking at him now. Let's see what he does there. Shook hands with Judge. He just shook hands with Tony Brett.
Al Green's sign read, "Black people aren't apes."
Apes. Okay.
In reference to the video that he posted on Truth Social, or that they claim an aide posted featuring the Obamas, correct?
On his account.
A boomer aide, correct? It was a.
He shook hands with Justice Coney Barrett. And here's the president coming up now. There'll be the announcement of him, so we'll get another round of applause. Let's listen to see what mixture there is of applause and any other sound we hear, let's listen in. Doug Collins is once again the designated survivor.
Oh, there we go. Breaking.
Maybe he liked it last year.
Didn't want to sit through the full speech.
I've never heard of anybody doing it twice. That's so strange. Maybe they think he'd be the best president. Sam, can we hear the audio? Can we hear the audio from within the hall, Sam?
That is the audio that I'm getting right now.
Okay. All right, so again, we're going to watch the speech together. Unfortunately, or I should say just matter-of-factly, Wills needs to go to attend to other duties. Wills, grateful to you for joining for the pregame here with us. We will see you later if you have time, but we will see both Jon Michael, Nikki, and others afterwards. So Wills has our permission to depart when he needs to, and we'll all watch together and see everybody on the back end. And as I said, if there's news breaking during this speech, we'll be here to comment at whatever platform you're watching on.
Thank you, and sorry I can't be with you all to watch this.
Thank you.
See you on the other side.
Pleasure doing business with you, sir. We'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Members of Congress, I have the high privilege and distinct honor of presenting to you the President of the United States.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. It's really an honor. Speaker Johnson, Vice President Vance, First Lady of the United States. Second Lady of the United States. Members of Congress and my fellow Americans, our nation is back, bigger, better, richer, and stronger than ever before. Less than 5 months from now, our country will celebrate an epic milestone in American history, the 250th anniversary of our glorious American independence. This July 4th, we will mark 2.5 centuries of liberty and triumph, progress and freedom in the most incredible and exceptional nation ever to exist on the face of the earth. And you've seen nothing yet. We're going to do better and better and better. This is the golden age of America. When I last spoke in this chamber 12 months ago, I had just inherited a nation in crisis with a stagnant economy, inflation at record levels, a wide open border, horrendous recruitment for military and police, rampant crime at home, and wars and chaos all over the world. But tonight, after just 1 year, I can say with dignity and pride that we have achieved a transformation like no one has ever seen before, and a turnaround for the ages. It is indeed a turnaround for the ages. And we will never go back to where we were just a very short time ago. We're not going back. Today, our border is secure. Thank you. Today, our border is secure. Our spirit is restored. Inflation is plummeting. Incomes are rising fast. The roaring economy is roaring like never before. And our enemies are scared. Our military and police are stacked. And America is respected again, perhaps like never before. After 4 years in which millions and millions of illegal aliens poured across our borders, totally unvetted and unchecked, we now have the strongest and most secure border in American history by far. In the past 9 months, 0 illegal aliens have been admitted to the United States. But we will always allow people to come in legally, people that will love our country and will work hard to maintain our country. The flow of deadly fentanyl across our border is down by a record 56% in 1 year. And last year, the murder rate saw its single largest decline in recorded history. This is the biggest decline, think of it, in recorded history, the lowest number in over 125 years, year 1900. In fact, substantially before my wonderful father, I had a wonderful father, Fred, before he was born, substantially before he was born. That's a long time ago. He wouldn't like me to say that, but that's a long time ago. The Biden administration and its allies in Congress gave us the worst inflation in the history of our country. But in 12 months, my administration has driven core inflation down to the lowest level in more than 5 years. And in the last 3 months of 2025, it was down to 1.7%. Gasoline, which reached a peak of over $6 a gallon in some states under my predecessor, it was quite honestly a disaster, is now below $2.30 a gallon in most states, and in some places, $1.99 a gallon. And when I visited the great state of Iowa just a few weeks ago, I even saw $1.85 a gallon for gasoline. Mortgage rates are the lowest in 4 years and falling fast, and the annual cost of a typical new mortgage is down almost $5,000 just since I took office. 1 year. And low interest rates will solve the Biden-created housing problem while at the same time protecting the values of those people who already own a house that really feel rich for the first time in their lives. We want to protect those values. We want to keep those values up. We're going to do both. And we are going to keep it that way. The stock market has set 53 all-time record highs since the election. Think of that, 1 year. Boosting pensions, 401ks, and retirement accounts for the millions and millions of Americans. They're all gaining. Everybody's up, way up. In 4 long years, the last administration got less than $1 trillion in new investment in the United States. And when I say less, substantially less. In 12 months, I secured commitments for more than $18 trillion pouring in from all over the globe. Think of it, much less than $1 trillion for 4 years versus much more than $18 trillion for 1 year. What a difference a president makes. A short time ago, we were a dead country. Now we are the hottest country anywhere in the world, the hottest. As thousands of new businesses are forming and factories, plants, and laboratories are being built, we have added 70,000 new construction jobs in just a very short period of time. It's getting bigger and bigger and stronger. Nobody can believe what they're watching. American oil production is up by more than 600,000 barrels a day, and we just received from our new friend and partner, Venezuela, more than 80 million barrels of oil. American natural gas production is at an all-time high because I kept my promise to drill, baby, drill. More Americans are working today than at any time in the history of our country. Think about that. Any time in the history of our country, more working today. And 100% of all jobs created under my administration have been in the private sector. We ended DEI in America. We cut a record number of job-killing regulations, and in 1 year we have lifted 2.4 million Americans, a record, off of food stamps. And for all of these reasons, I say tonight, members of Congress, the state of our union is strong. Our country is winning again. In fact, we're winning so much that we really don't know what to do about it. People are asking me, please, 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 Mr. President, we're winning too much. We can't take it anymore. We're not used to winning in our country. Until you came along, we're just always losing, but now we're winning too much. And I say, no, 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 you're going to win again. You're going to win big. You're going to win bigger than ever. And to prove that point, here with us tonight is a group of winners who just made the entire nation proud. The men's gold medal Olympic hockey team. Come on in. That's the first time I've ever seen them get up. And actually, not all of them did get up. But they beat a fantastic Canadian team in overtime, as everybody saw, as did the American women who will soon be coming to the White House. They were in the Oval Office before, and I just want to say a second very big congratulations to Team USA. But I have to say that, and I told them this, and we took a vote of the team. I said, anybody votes no, I'm not doing it. So they stood there, and they weren't about to say no, because I've never seen a goaltender play as well as goalie Connor Hellebuck. Think of it, 46 shots on goal, and I asked him, the one shot, the one where you put your stick in the back and it hit the neck of your stick and bounced off, do you practice that, or was that a little lucky? He refused to answer that question. But I just want to tell you that the members of this great hockey squad will be very happy to hear, based on their vote and my vote, and in this case my vote was more important, that I will soon be presenting Connor with our highest civilian honor, which we will be given and which has been given to many athletes over the years. But when I say many, not too many, like 12, it's called the highest civilian honor in our country, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Great athletes have gotten that, very great, the best, and I thought he deserved it. And I did take a vote, every single one of them. I said, I'm not giving it if anybody goes no, and every single one of them rapidly put up their hand. So I want to thank you all. What a special job you did. What special champions you are. Thank you very much. I'm also pleased to say that the next time the Olympic torch is lit, it will be here in America for the 2028 Olympics, and it's the summer version right in Los Angeles. We're going to do a good job in Los Angeles. And Los Angeles is going to be safe, just like Washington, D.C. is now one of the safest cities in the country. And this year, and I must say I got them both. I got them in my first term, and I was disappointed because I didn't think I'd be the president when this happened. But strange things took place. And now I've got them because I got the Olympics and I got the 2026 FIFA World Cup, and I wanted to claim the 250th, but I didn't get away with that one. I couldn't claim that one for myself. But we're getting the World Cup, so we have the World Cup and the Olympics coming, and that is exciting news. So this will be a year to celebrate our country and the heroes who have kept it free. Men like Buddy Taggart. At age 17, Buddy volunteered to defend America in World War II, serving in the Pacific under the great General Douglas MacArthur. He fought bravely in the famous Battle of Manila, worked so hard. He was badly wounded and almost killed by enemy machine guns in Luzon. And 81 years ago this month, he liberated the largest internment camp in the Philippines, one of the largest anywhere in the world. But he earned many honors, including a Purple Heart and a Bronze Star, came home, started a family, and tonight he is in the gallery looking forward to July 4th, 2026, his 100th birthday. So, Buddy, you're a brave man, and we salute you. Even in times of challenge, setback, and immense heartache, the spirit of 1776 has always shone through very brightly. It was July 4th of last year when floodwaters tore through a girls' summer camp in Central Texas, one of the worst things I've ever seen. I was there, rising 26 feet in the matter of minutes, tragically claiming many, many lives. You all remember that one. As the waters threatened to sweep her away, 11-year-old Millie Kate McClelland closed her eyes and prayed to God. She thought she was going to die. Those prayers were answered when Coast Guard rescue swimmer Scott Ruskin descended from a helicopter above. Nobody knew where he came from. It was Scott's first ever rescue mission, a young guy, but very brave, very, very top, always top in his class. And he lifted not just Millie Kate, but 164 others to safety. People watched Scott from a distance, and they couldn't believe what they were seeing. The winds were blowing, the rain was pouring, everything was going, and that rapid water, nobody's ever seen anything like it. They said, wow, that's something. Tonight, Scott and Millie Kate are here together, reunited for the very first time. Thank you, Scott, Millie Kate. And Petty Officer Ruskin, I'm pleased to inform you that I am now awarding you the Legion of Merit for extraordinary heroism, which is what it was, extraordinary heroism. Thank you. And I'd like to have the military aide to please come down and take care of the service. Military aide, thank you very much. Take care of that very important service. Thank you very much. From 1776 to today, every generation of Americans has stepped forward to defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And they're really doing it for the next generation. But now it's our turn. Together we're building a nation where every child has the chance to reach higher and go further, where government answers to the people, not the powerful, and where the interests of hardworking American citizens are always our first and ultimate concern. That is the debt we owe to the heroes who came before us, and that is the promise we must keep to America for our 250th year. Last year, I urged this Congress to begin the mission by passing the largest tax cuts in American history, and our Republican majorities delivered so beautifully. Thank you, Republicans. All Democrats, every single one of them, voted against these really important and very necessary massive tax cuts. They wanted large-scale tax increases to hurt the people instead. But we held strong, and with the great, big, beautiful bill, we gave you no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security for our great seniors. And we also made interest on auto loans tax deductible the first time, but only if the car is made in America. Recently in Pennsylvania, I met Megan Hemhauser, a devoted mom who's homeschools her children, beautiful, 2 children, during the day while waiting tables at night as her husband works overtime operating very heavy equipment. Megan is here this evening, and she's happy to tell you that she is so much richer because with no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and our expanded child tax credit done again by Republicans, Megan and her husband will take home more than $5,000 extra just for the year, cutting her tax bill in more than half. Megan, please stand up. We're fighting for you, Megan. Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Megan. We're fighting for you, Megan. Under our bill, parents like Megan can also activate their children's brand new Trump accounts. And I didn't name it. I did not name it. I did not name that. Nobody believes me, but I did not name it. It was named by a very tall man standing right there in the 3rd row. Nice man, a good man. Tax-free investment accounts for every American child. This is something that's so special and has taken off and gone through the roof. Millions will be pre-funded courtesy of the U.S. Treasury and private individuals like Michael and Susan Dell, who have donated $6.25 billion to fund the Trump accounts for 25 million American children. They're great people. You know, I asked Michael Dell, how do you make all that money? He said, well, I just sat on my dorm in school, and I made computers, and I'd sell them to people, and I just kept selling and selling and selling, and pretty amazing story. That's called the American dream. He sold a lot of computers, a lot of those laptops, so I congratulate him on that, but I really thank him and Susan, as well as others like Brad Gerstner, a very tremendous guy. He was behind it right from the beginning. Brad Gerstner. Thank you, Brad. So with modest additional contributions, these young people's accounts could grow to over $100,000 or more by the time they turn 18. Think of it. How much money is that for somebody that started with nothing? Over 100,000, could be much more than that. To make this investment in our children's future, go to trumpaccounts.gov, trumpaccounts.gov. And a lot of people are doing it. It's setting every record in the book. It's popular. They knew what it was going to take. I'm so proud of them. I'm so proud of the people that got it started. And now it's just taken off. One of the primary reasons for our country's stunning economic turnaround, the biggest in history, where the Dow Jones broke 50,000 4 years ahead of schedule, and the S&P hit 7,000, where it wasn't supposed to do it for many years, were tariffs. I used these tariffs, took in hundreds of billions of dollars to make great deals for our country, both economically and on a national security basis. Everything was working well. Countries that were ripping us off for decades are now paying us hundreds of billions of dollars. They were ripping us so badly, you all know that. Everybody knows it. Even the Democrats know it. They just don't want to say it. And yet these countries are now happy, and so are we. We made deals. The deals are all done. And they're happy. They're not making money like they used to, but we're making a lot of money. There was no inflation, tremendous growth. And the big story was how Donald Trump called the economy correctly, and 22 Nobel Prize winners in economics didn't. They got it totally wrong. They got it really wrong. And then just 4 days ago, an unfortunate ruling from the United States Supreme Court. It just came down. It came down. Very unfortunate ruling. But the good news is that almost all countries and corporations want to keep the deal that they already made, right, Scott? Knowing that the legal power that I, as president, have to make a new deal could be far worse for them, and therefore they will continue to work along the same successful path that we had negotiated before the Supreme Court's unfortunate involvement. So despite the disappointing ruling, these powerful country-saving, it's saving our country, the kind of money we're taking in, peace-protecting. Many of the wars I settled was because of the threat of tariffs. I wouldn't have been able to settle them without. Will remain in place under fully approved and tested alternative legal statutes. And they have been tested for a long time. They're a little more complex, but they're actually probably better, leading to a solution that will be even stronger than before. Congressional action will not be necessary. It's already time-tested and approved. And as time goes by, I believe the tariffs paid for by foreign countries will, like in the past, substantially replace the modern-day system of income tax, taking a great financial burden off the people that I love. Right? Moving forward, factories, jobs, investment, and trillions of dollars will continue pouring into the United States of America because we finally have a president who puts America first. I put America first. I love America. For decades before I came along, we had the exact opposite. From trade to healthcare, from energy to immigration, everything was stolen and rigged in order to drain the wealth out of the productive, hardworking people who make our country great, who make our country run. Under Biden and his corrupt partners in Congress and beyond, it reached a breaking point with the Green New scam, open borders for everyone. They poured in by the millions and millions from prisons, from mental institutions. They were murderers, 11,888 murders. They came into our country. You allowed that to happen. And record-setting inflation that cost the typical family $34,000 in just a speck of time. Now the same people in this chamber who voted for those disasters suddenly used the word affordability, a word, they just used it. Somebody gave it to them, knowing full well that they caused and created the increased prices that all of our citizens had to endure. You caused that problem. You caused that problem. They knew their statements were a lie. They knew it. They knew their statements were a dirty, rotten lie. Their policies created the high prices. Our policies are rapidly ending them. We are doing really well. Those prices are plummeting downward. The price of eggs is down 60%, Madam Secretary. Thank you. The cost of chicken, butter, fruit, hotels, automobiles, rent is lower today than when I took office by a lot. And even beef, which was very high, is starting to come down significantly. Just hold on a little while. We're getting it down. And soon you will see numbers that few people would think were possible to achieve just a short time ago. Nobody can believe when they see the kind of numbers, and especially energy, when they see energy going down to numbers like that, they cannot believe it. It's like another big tax cut. I'm also confronting one of the biggest ripoffs of our times, the crushing cost of health care caused by you. Since the passage of the Unaffordable Care Act, sometimes referred to as Obamacare, big insurance companies have gotten rich. It was meant for the insurance companies, not for the people. With our government giving them hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars a year as their stock prices soared 1,000, 1,200, 1,400, and even 1,700%, like nothing else. That's why I introduced the great health care plan. I want to stop all payments to big insurance companies and instead give that money directly to the people so they can buy their own health care, which will be better health care at a much lower cost. In addition, my plan requires maximum price transparency. That's a big deal. Sounds so simple, so big. And I did that in my first term, and the Democrats immediately terminated it with full knowledge that they were doing a very bad thing for the people. Costs were going to go way up, and that's what happened, and now I'm bringing them way down on health care and everything else. I'm also ending the wildly inflated cost of prescription drugs like has never happened before. Other presidents tried to do it, but they never could. They tried. Most didn't try, actually. But they tried. They said they tried. They couldn't do it. They didn't even come close. They were all talk and no action, but I got it done. Under my just enacted most favored nation agreements, Americans who have for decades paid by far the highest prices of any nation anywhere in the world for prescription drugs will now pay the lowest price anywhere in the world for drugs. Anywhere, the lowest price. So in my first year of the second term, should be my third term, but strange things happen. I took prescription drugs, a very big part of health care, from the highest price in the entire world to the lowest. That's a big achievement. The result is price differences of 300, 400, 500, 600% and more, all available right now at a new website called TrumpRx.gov. And I didn't name that one either, by the way. And here tonight is the very first customer ever to get that big discount, and it is big, Catherine Rayner. For 5 years, she and her husband have struggled with infertility, and they turned to IVF. One drug has been costing Catherine $4,000 to purchase. But a few weeks ago, she logged onto the Trump RX website and got that same drug that cost $4,000, got it for under $500, a reduction of much more, actually, than $3,500. Catherine, we are all praying for you, and you're going to be a great mom. So now I'm calling on Congress to codify my most favored nation program into law. Now, the one thing, I'm not sure it matters because it's going to be very hard for somebody that comes along after me to say, let's raise drug prices by 700 or 800%. But John and Mike, if you don't mind, codify it anyway. They may do it. Codify it anyway. Thank you. Many Americans are also concerned that energy demand from AI data centers could unfairly drive up their electric utility bills. Tonight, I'm pleased to announce that I have negotiated the new Ratepayer Protection Pledge. You know what that is? We're telling the major tech companies that they have the obligation to provide for their own power needs. They can build their own power plants as part of their factory so that no one's prices will go up. And in many cases, prices of electricity will go down for the community and very substantially down. This is a unique strategy never used in this country before. We have an old grid. It could never handle the kind of numbers, the amount of electricity that's needed. So I'm telling them they can build their own plant. They're going to produce their own electricity. It will ensure the company's ability to get electricity while at the same time lowering prices of electricity for you, and could be very substantial for all of you cities and towns. You're going to see some good things happen over the next number of years. Another pillar of the American dream that has been under attack is home ownership. With us tonight is Rachel Wiggins, a mom of 2 from Houston. She placed bids on 20 homes and lost all of those bids to gigantic investment firms that bypassed inspection, paid all cash, and turned those houses into rentals, stealing away her American dream. She was devastated. Stories like this are why last month I signed executive order to ban large Wall Street investment firms from buying up in the thousands single-family homes. And now I'm asking Congress to make that ban permanent, because homes for people, really, that's what we want. We want homes for people, not for corporations. Corporations are doing just fine. Rachel, thank you very much. Good luck with your home. You'll get one soon. We're also working to make it easier for Americans to save for retirement. And under this administration, we will always protect Social Security and Medicare. They are not protecting it for our seniors. We will always protect Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. Since I took office, the typical 401k balance is up by at least $30,000. That's a lot of money. We have millions and millions of people, because the stock market has done so well, setting all those records. Your 401ks are way up. Yet half of all of working Americans still do not have access to a retirement plan with matching contributions from an employer. To remedy this gross disparity, I'm announcing that next year my administration will give these often forgotten American workers, great people, the people that built our country, access to the same type of retirement plan offered to every federal worker. We will match your contribution with up to $1,000 each year. As we ensure that all Americans can profit from a rising stock market, let's also ensure that members of Congress cannot corruptly profit from using insider information. They stood up for that. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Did Nancy Pelosi stand up if she's here? Doubt it. Pass the Stop Insider Trading Act without delay. I wasn't sure if anybody even on this side was going to applaud for that. I'm very impressed. Thank you. I'm very impressed. But when it comes to the corruption that is plundering, it's plundering America. There's been no more stunning example than Minnesota, where members of the Somali community have pillaged an estimated $19 billion from the American taxpayer. Oh, we have all the information. And in actuality, the number is much higher than that. And California, Massachusetts, Maine, and many other states are even worse. This is the kind of corruption that shreds the fabric of a nation, and we are working on it like you wouldn't believe. So tonight, although started 4 months ago, I am officially announcing the war on fraud to be led by our great Vice President, J.D. Vance. He'll get it done. If we're able to find enough of that fraud, we will actually have a balanced budget overnight. It'll go very quickly. That's the kind of money you're talking about. We'll balance our budget. The Somali pirates who ransacked Minnesota remind us that there are large parts of the world where corruption and lawlessness are the norm, not the exception. Importing these cultures through unrestricted immigration and open borders brings those problems right here to the USA. And it is the American people who pay the price in higher medical bills, car insurance rates, rent, taxes, and perhaps most importantly, crime. We will take care of this problem. We're going to take care of this problem. We are not playing games. Delilah. Delilah Coleman was only 5 years old in June 2024 when a 18-wheel tractor trailer plowed into her stopped car traveling at 60 miles an hour or more. The driver was an illegal alien let in by Joe Biden and given a commercial driver's license by open borders politicians in California. Doctors said Delilah would never be able to walk or talk, have a good life. She wouldn't even be able to eat again. But against all odds, she is now in the first grade learning to walk. And she's here this evening with her dad, Marcus, a fantastic man. Delilah, please, you are a great inspiration. Please stand up. Thank you, Delilah. Many, if not most, illegal aliens do not speak English and cannot read even the most basic road signs as to direction, speed, danger, or location. That's why tonight I'm calling on Congress to pass what we will call the Delilah Law, barring any state from granting commercial driver's licenses to illegal aliens. And yesterday, as you probably saw at the White House, I hosted a ceremony with Americans who lost their treasured loved ones to the scourge of illegal immigration. People came into our country, how we allowed this to happen with our open borders. These are the angel moms and families that for decades our government betrayed and our media totally ignored. It was terrible. Hard to believe, actually. In 2023, a 16-year-old high school cheerleader named Elizabeth Medina was supposed to perform in her town's Christmas parade, but she never arrived. Her mother, Jacqueline, went home to look for her, and she found her lying dead in a bathtub, bleeding profusely after being stabbed 25 times. Elizabeth's killer was a previously arrested illegal alien who had broken in and brutally extinguished the brightest light in her family's life, violently and viciously. Her heartbroken mother is in the gallery to remind everyone in this chamber exactly why we are deporting illegal alien criminals to our country at record numbers, and we're getting them the hell out of here fast. We don't want them. Thank you very much, Jacqueline. Thank you. We can never forget that many in this room not only allowed the border invasion to happen before I got involved, but indeed they would do it all over again if they ever had the chance. If they ever got elected, they would open up those borders to some of the worst criminals anywhere in the world. The only thing standing between Americans and a wide open border right now is President Donald J. Trump and our great Republican patriots in Congress. Thank you. Thank you. As we speak, Democrats in this chamber have cut off all funding for the Department of Homeland Security. It's all cut off. It's all cut off. They have instituted another Democrat shutdown, the first one costing us 2 points on GDP. 2 points we lost on GDP, which probably made them quite happy, actually. Now they have closed the agency responsible for protecting Americans from terrorists and murderers. Tonight I'm demanding the full and immediate restoration of all funding for the border security, homeland security of the United States, and also for helping people clean up their snow. We have no money because of the Democrats, and it would be nice. We'd love to give you a hand at cleaning it up, but you gave no money. Nobody's getting paid. It's a shame. So you have to think about it. We have, in case you didn't know, a pretty large snowstorm out there. One of the great things about the State of the Union is how it gives Americans the chance to see clearly what their representatives really believe. So tonight I'm inviting every legislator to join with my administration in reaffirming a fundamental principle. If you agree with this statement, then stand up and show your support. The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens. Isn't that a shame? You should be ashamed of yourself not standing up. You should be ashamed of yourself. That is why I'm also asking you to end deadly sanctuary cities that protect the criminals and enact serious penalties for public officials who block the removal of criminal aliens. In many cases, drug lords, murderers all over our country, they're blocking the removal of these people out of our country, and you should be ashamed of yourself. And perhaps most importantly, I'm asking you to approve the Save America Act. To stop illegal aliens and others who are unpermitted persons from voting in our sacred American elections. That cheating is rampant in our elections. It's rampant. It's very simple. All voters must show voter ID. All voters must show proof of citizenship in order to vote. And no more crooked mail-in ballots except for illness, disability, military, or travel. None. And this should be an easy one. And by the way, it's polling at 89%, including Democrats. 89%. And even the new communist mayor of New York City, I think he's a nice guy, actually. Speak to him a lot. Bad policy, but nice guy. Just said they want people to shovel snow. They got hit hard. Wants them to shovel snow, but if you apply for that job, you need to show 2 original forms of ID and a Social Security card. Yet they don't want identification for the greatest privilege of them all, voting in America. No, it's no good. No good. Both Republicans and Democrats overwhelmingly agree on the policy that we just enunciated. And Congress should unite and enact this common sense, country-saving legislation right now, and it should be before anything else happens. And the reason they don't want to do it, why would anybody not want voter ID? One reason, because they want to cheat. There's only one reason. They make up all excuses. They say it's racist. They come up with things, you almost say, what imagination they have. They want to cheat. They have cheated. And their policy is so bad that the only way they can get elected is to cheat. And we're going to stop it. We have to stop it, John. And here is one more opportunity to show common sense in government. In the gallery tonight are Sage Blair and her mother, Michelle. In 2021, Sage was 14 when school officials in Virginia sought to socially transition her to a new gender, treating her as a boy and hiding it from her parents. Hard to believe, isn't it? Before long, a confused Sage ran away from home after she was found in a horrific situation in Maryland A left-wing judge refused to return Sage to her parents because they did not immediately state that their daughter was their son. Sage was thrown into an all-boys state home and suffered terribly for a long time. But today, all of that is behind them because Sage is a proud and wonderful young woman with a full-ride scholarship to Liberty University. Sage and Michelle, please stand up. And thank you for your great bravery. And who can believe that we're even speaking about things like this? 15 years ago, if somebody was up here and said that, they'd say, what's wrong with him? But now we have to say it because it's going on all over numerous states without even telling the parents. But surely we can all agree no state can be allowed to rip children from their parents' arms and transition them to a new gender against the parents' will. Who would believe that we're even talking about this? We must ban it, and we must ban it immediately. Look, nobody stands up. These people are crazy, I'm telling you. They're crazy. Amazing. Incredible. Boy, oh boy. We're lucky we have a country. With people like this, Democrats are destroying our country, but we've stopped it just in the nick of time, didn't we? Huh? No one cares more about protecting America's youth than our wonderful First Lady, now a movie star. She's a movie star. Can you believe it? Who would have believed that? Over the past year, she has had an incredible impact championing AI legislation, advancing a landmark executive order on foster care, and helping secure $30 million to launch the Melania Trump Foster Youth to Independence Initiative. It's a tremendous, really a tremendous thing that happened and had a lot of bipartisan support. She gets much better bipartisan support than I do. I get none. She gets a lot. Someday you're going to have to tell me how you did that. And students and educators in every state have joined the First Lady's efforts in the presidential AI challenge, keeping America's next generation positioned to succeed and strongly succeed in the future. Tonight, we welcome two young people whose lives reflect the First Lady's impact, Sierra Burns and Everest Nevermont. Thank you both, and Melania, thank you. I know how hard you worked on it. Thank you very much. I'm very proud to say that during my time in office, both the first 4 years and in particular this last year, there has been a tremendous renewal in religion, faith, Christianity, and belief in God. Tremendous renewal. This is especially true among young people, and a big part of that had to do with my great friend, Charlie Kirk, a great guy, great man. So last year, Charlie was violently murdered by an assassin and martyred, really martyred for his beliefs. His wonderful wife, Erica, is with us tonight. Erica, please stand. Thank you, Erica. Been through a lot. In Charlie's memory, we must all come together to reaffirm that America is one nation under God, and we must totally reject political violence of any kind. We love religion, and we love bringing it back, and it's coming back at levels that nobody actually thought possible. It's really a beautiful thing to see. Above all, unleashing America's promise requires keeping our communities safe. We have made incredible strides, yet dangerous repeat offenders continue to be released by pro-crime Democrat politicians again and again. We are honored to be joined tonight by a woman who's been through hell, Anya Zuretska. In 2022, she and her beautiful daughter, so beautiful, what a beautiful young woman, Irina, fled war-torn Ukraine to live with relatives near Charlotte, North Carolina. And by the way, what's going on with Charlotte? Last summer, 23-year-old Irina was riding home on the train when a deranged monster who had been arrested over a dozen times and was released through no cash bail, stood up and viciously slashed a knife through her neck and body. No one will ever forget. There were people on that train. No one will ever forget the expression of terror on Irina's face as she looked up at her attacker in the last seconds of her life. She died instantly. She had escaped a brutal war only to be slain by a hardened criminal, set free to kill in America, came in through open borders. Mrs. Zuretska, tonight I promise you we will ensure justice for your magnificent daughter, Irina. How do you not stand? How do you not stand? I'm asking this Congress to pass tough legislation to ensure that violent and dangerous repeat offenders are put behind bars, and importantly, that they stay there. Starting last summer, I deployed our National Guard and federal law enforcement to restore law and order to our most dangerous cities, including Memphis, Tennessee, big success, New Orleans, Louisiana, big success, and our nation's capital itself, Washington, D.C., where we have almost no crime anymore in Washington, D.C. How did that happen? In fact, crime in Washington is now at the lowest level ever recorded, and murders in D.C. this January were down close to 100% from a year ago. They don't like to hear that. One of the brave service members who helped achieve this stunning turnaround was 20-year-old West Virginia Army National Guard Specialist Sarah Beckstrom. After a 4-month deployment, she voluntarily extended her service, and her rank was going to be lifted. She was doing so well. They were so proud of her. But the very next day, she was on patrol near the White House when she was ambushed and shot in the head by a terrorist monster from Afghanistan. Shouldn't have been in our country. And all because she wore the uniform of our nation. She was shot. He traveled here because he didn't like people wearing our uniform. He was sick and deranged. Shouldn't have been in our country. Sarah Beckstrom died in order to defend our capital, and we are honored to be joined by her wonderful parents, Gary and Evalie. Your daughter was a true American patriot, and she will be greatly missed. She was a great person. I saw reports on her. They've never seen anything like it. So sorry. Thank you very much. She's a great young lady. I saw reports that were like perfect. She was perfect. Serving alongside Sarah that day was Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf. The terrorist shot Andrew in the head, and no one thought he could possibly make it. The two of them, Sarah and Andrew, both shot violently in the head. Neither was expected to make it. They weren't even given a chance, except his wonderful mother, named Melody, who I spoke to the same night, and she was so positive. The doctors thought that Andrew was gone, but his mother said, no, no, Mr. President, Andrew will be fine. He's going to make it. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, he was given almost no chance. She said, I have no doubt, sir, he's going to be okay. This was a conversation that I had with her that night, with her son laying helplessly in bed, blood all over. Everybody is praying, she said, sir, he will be okay. The doctors didn't understand what she was saying, and after looking at the results of the damage done, neither did I. She was so strong and conclusive that even Andrew's great father felt she didn't really understand the gravity of the situation. But she turned out to be right. Right, Melody? She turned out to be right. Amazing, actually. I said, where does this woman come from? She's the most positive person I've ever met. With God's help, Andrew has battled back from the edge of death, and we're talking about the edge of death, on his way to a miraculous recovery. He's got a little work to do, but he's doing great. Nice to see you. He's a good-looking guy. Nice to see you. Thanks, Andrew. Thank you very much. So, Andrew, while you're up, now I'm going to ask a highly respected General James Seward to present Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf and the great family of Sarah Beckstrom with the award created by our late, great President George Washington himself. It's called the Purple Heart. We love you all. Love you. We're proudly restoring safety for Americans at home, and we are also restoring security for Americans abroad. Our country has never been stronger. My first 10 months, I ended 8 wars, including Cambodia. Isn't it funny? Sick people. Cambodia and Thailand, Pakistan and India. Would have been a nuclear war. 35 million people said the Prime Minister of Pakistan would have died if it were not for my involvement. Kosovo and Serbia, Israel and Iran, Egypt and Ethiopia, Armenia and Azerbaijan, the Congo and Rwanda, and of course the war in Gaza, which proceeds at a very low level. It's just about there. And I want to thank Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner for your help. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Jared. And I also want to thank the man they report to, Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Thank you, Marco. People are like you. You know, Marco got 100% of the votes when he was in confirmation. I think our next one was about 54%. And some of the Democrats are now saying, I can't believe we approved that guy. And he said it's an honor that they feel that way, right, Marco? You have done a great job, great Secretary of State. I think he'll go down as the best ever. Under the ceasefire I negotiated, every single hostage, both living and dead, has been returned home. Can you believe that? Nobody thought it was possible. Nobody thought that was possible. Both living and dead. And those parents who had a dead son, their boy, they'd always tell me their boy, they wanted him as much as though he were living. It was an amazing period of time. And they came back, and when we got all of the living hostages back, and many, many before them, but I always said those last 20 are going to be very tough, but we got many, many more, hundreds. But I said those last 20 are going to be tough. We got them back. But we only got back 14 or 15 of the dead of the 28. And believe it or not, Hamas worked along with Israel, and they dug and they dug and they dug. It's a tough thing to do, going through bodies all over, passing up 100 bodies sometimes for each one that they found. Tough job. And they finally got it back to 27. And then Steve and Jared, they got it back to 28. They found all 28. Nobody thought that was possible, but we did it. And I remember the family of the 28th. They were so grieved, but they were so happy as it's possible to be. They had their boy back. The mother said, "Sir, we have our boy back." What a period of time that was, but we got them all back. So thank you both very much. Great job. And we're working very hard to end the 9th war, the killing and slaughter between Russia and Ukraine, where 25,000 soldiers are dying each and every month. Think of that, 25,000 soldiers are dying a month. A war which would have never happened if I were president, would have never happened. As president, I will make peace wherever I can, but I will never hesitate to confront threats to America wherever we must. That's why in a breakthrough operation last June, the United States military obliterated Iran's nuclear weapons program with an attack on Iranian soil known as Operation Midnight Hammer. Good. For decades, it had been the policy of the United States never to allow Iran to obtain a nuclear weapon. Many decades. Since they seized control of that proud nation 47 years ago, the regime and its murderous proxies have spread nothing but terrorism and death and hate. They've killed and maimed thousands of American service members and hundreds of thousands and even millions of people with what's called roadside bombs. They were the kings of the roadside bomb. And we took out Soleimani. I did that during my first term. Had a huge impact. He was the father of the roadside bomb. And just over the last couple of months with the protests, they've killed at least, it looks like, 32,000 protesters. 32,000 protesters in their own country. They shot them and hung them. We stopped them from hanging a lot of them with the threat of serious violence. But this is some terrible people. They've already developed missiles that can threaten Europe and our bases overseas, and they're working to build missiles that will soon reach the United States of America. After Midnight Hammer, they were warned to make no future attempts to rebuild their weapons program, and in particular, nuclear weapons. Yet they continue, starting it all over. We wiped it out, and they want to start all over again, and are at this moment again pursuing their sinister ambitions. We are in negotiations with them. They want to make a deal, but we haven't heard those secret words. We will never have a nuclear weapon. My preference is to solve this problem through diplomacy. But one thing is certain, I will never allow the world's #1 sponsor of terror, which they are by far, to have a nuclear weapon. Can't let that happen. And no nation should ever doubt America's resolve. We have the most powerful military on earth. I rebuilt the military in my first term. We're going to continue to do so. Also, we just approved a $1 trillion budget. We have no choice. We have to be strong because hopefully we will seldom have to use this great power that we built together. It's really called peace through strength, and it's been very, very effective. So thanks to Republicans in Congress, we're investing that record number of dollars, have no choice, in the United States Armed Forces. Also creating a lot of jobs, but we're not even doing it for that reason. Because as I said, we have more jobs, more people working today than ever before in the history of our country. And NATO countries are friends and allies. They are. They're our friends and they're our allies. Have just agreed, at my very strong request, to pay 5% of GDP for military defense rather than the 2%, which they weren't paying. We were paying for almost all of NATO. Now they're paying 5 as opposed to not paying 2. And getting that 5% was something which everyone said would never be done, could not happen. We got it really easily with one meeting. And big difference between 2% that's not paid. We were paying the freight of many of them. Very few were paid up. Now 5%, then they're paid. And everything we send over to Ukraine is sent through NATO, and they pay us in full. They pay us totally in full. Every branch of our armed forces is setting records for recruitment. This is so exciting. and every service member recently. And every service member recently received a warrior dividend of $1,776. You know, they put it on my desk. We got the money from tariffs and other things, a lot of money we have. We have much more money than people understand. Have to rebuild that program a little bit, but it won't take long. But we got the money, and it was $1,775, and they wanted my approval. And I said, what's the number? $1,775. I said, wait a minute. For one more dollar, we can have $1,776. It's going to I said, we're going to figure that. I never asked anybody if we could afford it. One more dollar, I said $1,776. And I said, that's good. And I'll tell you what, our military, that was 4 months ago, our military, I never see a person in the military that doesn't thank me for it. So we're honored to do it. They deserve it. And we call it 1776. It was great. And we love our military. We love our law enforcement. We love our firemen. You know, the firemen don't get mentioned enough. We love our firemen. We're also restoring American security and dominance in the Western Hemisphere, acting to secure our national interests and defend our country from violence, drugs, terrorism, and foreign interference. For years, large swaths of territory in our region, including large parts of Mexico, really large parts of Mexico, have been controlled by murderous drug cartels. That's why I designated these cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, and I declared illicit fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction. And with our new military campaign, we have stopped record amounts of drugs coming into our country and virtually stopped it completely coming in by water or sea. You probably noticed that. We very seriously damaged their fishing industry also. Nobody wants to go fishing anymore. We've also taken down one of the most sinister cartel kingpins of all. You saw that yesterday. In January, elite American warriors carried out one of the most complex, spectacular feats of military competence and power in world history. No one's seen anything like it. Foreign leaders, I won't tell you who, called me and they said, very impressive, very good. They couldn't believe, they all watched, they saw what happened. This is a different fighting force that we had years ago when we fought to tie. You know, it's a great fighting force. I'm so proud of it. Look at Space Force. Space Force is my baby, because we did that. My baby, it's becoming so important. And America's armed forces overwhelmed all defenses and utterly defeated an enemy, good fighters, to end the reign of outlaw dictator Nicolas Maduro and bring him to face American justice. And this was an absolutely colossal victory for the security of the United States, and it also opens up a bright new beginning for the people of Venezuela. We're working closely with the new president of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, to unleash extraordinary economic gains for both of our countries and to bring new hope to those who have suffered so terribly. They really did suffer. With us tonight is Alejandro Gonzalez. She grew up in a tight-knit Venezuelan family and was especially close to her beloved uncle Enrique. But after Enrique ran for office and opposed Maduro, he was kidnapped by Maduro's security forces and thrown into the regime's really infamous prison in Caracas. Alejandro feared she would never see her uncle again. She feared for her own life also. But since the raid, we have worked with the new leadership, and they have ordered the closure of that vile prison and released hundreds of political prisoners already, with more to come. Alejandro, I'm pleased to inform you that not only has your uncle been released, but he is here tonight. We brought him over to celebrate his freedom with you in person. Enrique, please come down. Thank you, Enrique. Have a good time. Nice to have you back, Enrique. There were many heroes on that January raid to capture Maduro, really great heroes. It was very dangerous. They knew we were coming. They were all set. But the deeds of one warrior that night will live forever in the eternal chronicles of military valor. Chief Warrant Officer 5, Eric Slover, planned the mission and was the flight lead in the cockpit of the first helicopter, a big, beautiful, powerful helicopter. It was a massive Chinook carrying, as you can imagine, many, many American warfighters. Wearing the dog tags his wife Amy had blessed with holy water before he left. She knew it was going to be a rough one. Eric steered the Chinook under the cover of night and descended swiftly upon Maduro's heavily protected military fortress. This was a major military installation, protected by thousands of soldiers and guarded by Russian and Chinese military technology. How did that work out? Not too good. While preparing to land, enemy machine guns fired from every angle, and Eric was hit very badly in the leg and hip, one bullet after another. He absorbed 4 agonizing shots, shredding his leg into numerous pieces. And yet, despite the fact that the use of his legs was vital to successful helicopter flight, legs are the most important part of flying a helicopter, to deliver the many commandos who would capture and detain Maduro was the only thing Eric was thinking about. Then, even as he was gushing blood, which was flowing back down the aisle, helicopter lands at a steep angle. The machine guns stood right in front of him. They were right in front of him, 2 machine gunners who escaped the wrath of the previous planes. Eric maneuvered his helicopter with all of those lives and souls to face the enemy and let his gunners eliminate the threat. Turned the helicopter around so the gunners could take care of business, saving the lives of his fellow warriors from what could have been a catastrophic crash deep in enemy territory. Only after safely landing the helicopter with all the warriors aboard in the exact right spot, which was vital to the mission, we probably would have had to maybe cancel the mission if that didn't happen. Eric told his co-pilot, also wounded, but not as gravely, to take over. I'm about ready to pass out. The success of the entire mission and the lives of his fellow warriors hinge on Eric's ability to take the searing pain. It was unbelievable what's happened to his legs of the bullets and keep on flying and landing and People knew what was happening. Everybody in the back of the helicopter knew because they saw the blood pouring down the aisle. Chief Warrant Officer Slover is still recovering from his serious wounds, but I'm thrilled to say that he is here tonight with his wife, Amy, Eric, and Amy. Come on in. So we have a surprise for Eric and Amy. In recognition of Eric's actions above and beyond the call of duty, I would now like to ask General Jonathan Braga to present Chief Warrant Officer Slover with our nation's highest military award, the Congressional Medal of Honor. Well, thank you very much, Eric and Amy. Great to get to know you. I met with them and with a lot of their fellow warriors at Fort Bragg recently. You notice the name Fort Bragg, we have it back, we brought it back. We won the First World War with it, the Second World War with it, and then they decided to change the name. So we changed it back. Everybody wanted to change back too. And 10 of Eric's fellow warriors from that incredible night of victory will also be receiving medals at a private ceremony that will soon be held at the White House, and Eric will be there. Thank you.
Already broken the record for the longest State of the Union address ever, and there's a long way to go, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Eric. That's a big one. Tonight we've celebrated many truly extraordinary American patriots, but there is one last living legend to honor before we go. He is one more heroic American aviator, Navy fighter pilot. Royce Williams served in World War II, Korea, Vietnam, flying more than 220 missions. In the skies over Korea in 1952, Royce was in the dogfight of a lifetime, legendary dogfight. Flying through blizzard conditions, his squadron was ambushed by 7 Soviet fighter planes. It was his first aerial combat of the war, and despite being massively outnumbered and outgunned, Royce led the takedown of 4 enemy jets and almost destroyed the others, vanquishing his adversaries while taking 263 bullets to his own plane and being seriously hurt. His story was secret for over 50 years. He didn't even want to tell his wife, but the legend grew and grew. But tonight, at 100 years old, this brave Navy captain is finally getting the recognition he deserves. He was a legend long before this evening. Royce, please stand up, and I will ask the First Lady of the United States to present Captain Royce Williams with his Congressional Medal of Honor. Thank you, Royce, and thank you, Eric. I've always wanted the Congressional Medal of Honor, but I was informed I'm not allowed to give it to myself, and I wouldn't know why I'd be taking it, but if they ever open up that law, I will be there with you someday. But you know, that's our highest honor, Congressional Medal of Honor, and that's a big thing, and it's an honor to be in the same room with you. Thank you both very much, Eric. Thank you. Thank you. 250 years is a long time in the life of a nation, but in another sense, it's really a mere moment in the eye of history. Two of the gentlemen we met in the gallery this evening took their first breaths 1 century ago, 100 years before that, on July 4th, 1826, the author of the Declaration of Independence, brilliant, Thomas Jefferson, drew his last breath. Just a single long human lifespan separates the giants who declared and won our independence from the heroes who stand among us tonight. Everything our nation has done, everything we have achieved, has been the work of those few great lifetimes. In those brief chapters, Americans built this nation from 13 humble colonies into the pinnacle of human civilization and human freedom, the strongest, wealthiest, most powerful, most successful nation in all of history. Americans ventured out across the daunting and dangerous continent. We carved paths through an unforgiving wilderness, settled a boundless frontier, and tamed the beautiful but very, very dangerous Wild West. From empty marshes and wide open plains, we raised up the world's greatest cities. Together, we mastered the world's mightiest industries and shattered history's monstrous tyrannies. And we liberated millions from the chains of fascism, communism, oppression, and terror. Americans lifted humanity into the skies on the wings of aluminum and steel. And then we launched mankind into the stars on rockets powered by sheer American will and unyielding American pride. We wired the globe with our ingenuity. We captivated the planet with American culture. And now we are pioneering the next great American breakthroughs that will change the entire world. All of this and so much more is the enduring legacy, unmatched glory of the hardworking patriots who built and defended this country and who still carry the hopes and freedoms on all of humanity's backs. For years they were forgotten, betrayed, and cast aside. But that great betrayal is over, and they will never be forgotten again. Because when the world needs courage, daring, vision, and inspiration, it is still turning to America. And when God needs a nation to work his miracles, he knows exactly who to ask. There is no challenge Americans cannot overcome, no frontier too vast for us to conquer, no dream too bold for us to chase, no horizon too distant for us to claim. For our destiny is written by the hand of providence, and these first 250 years were just the beginning. From the rugged border towns of Texas to the heartland villages of Michigan, from the sun-kissed shores of Florida to the endless fields of the Dakotas, and from the historic streets of Philadelphia to right here in our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., the golden age of America is upon us. The revolution that began in 1776 has not ended. It still continues because the flame of liberty and independence still burns in the heart of every American patriot. And our future will be bigger, better, brighter, bolder, and more glorious than ever before. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.
Donald Trump with a speech that will began at 9:11 Eastern Time and ends right at 11, or 9:11 p.m. Eastern Time, ending right at 11 o'clock Eastern Time. I don't know if that was purposeful or not. And a lot to talk about, a lot of interesting moments. And like with most Trump public events, if you love Donald Trump, you love that speech. And if you didn't, you didn't. I heard from many of you during the speech, and I'm going to share some of that. But I want to bring in my colleagues, our partners at the Daily Mail, and get their first impressions as we wait for the speech, Democratic response in just a moment from the governor of Virginia. So we'll have that, and we'll bring that to you live, of course. But bring in my colleagues. Start with Jon Michael. Jon Michael, your top line thoughts of the speech.
Yeah, I mean, he really spoke a lot about what was going on domestically, which is what I thought would be, the proper message given the midterms later this year. And there was definitely a theme of heroism, right? We saw a lot of awards being given out, 2 Medal of Honors, a Legion of Merit, I believe, and another award that's escaping my mind right now. But it was really highlighting a lot of everyday Americans that have kind of stepped up this year. So a lot of heartwarming moments, really interesting to see the survivor of that attack from Washington, D.C., the National Guardsman, stand up. We haven't seen him, I think, since that attack. And, just on a personal note, that's right down the street from the White House where Nikki and I both work every single day. So definitely heartwarming, uplifting. And I don't think he said Sleepy Joe even once. So interesting to see him get away from his typical foils and really start leading with his own opinions, his own thoughts, and not necessarily bashing and slamming somebody else for all the nation's problems.
Yeah, to be fair, there were about a half dozen references to the Biden administration cast as failure, but his language was relatively restrained, as it was about the Supreme Court. Nikki, your top line thoughts.
As I say, he did call the Democrats en masse crazy. So there was that moment where he, batted them around a little bit. I mean, I just think that it showed that he is the reality TV president, because if you think about the showmanship of this speech, the fact that he wanted to have major moments throughout the speech, the presentation of the awards, and then that moment where he basically asked the Democrats to please stand up and support American citizens over illegal immigrants. I mean, the audience participation in this speech, I think, made it much more watchable than your sort of average 2 hour, Trump rally speech. And I thought that, in that way, optically, it was pretty well done.
Yeah, I try to stay objective on these nights because people can have all sorts of opinions. I'll tell you the three things that struck me, and I think these are all objective facts. But you all, when you come on and participate, can tell me if I'm wrong. Number one, I've rarely seen him toggle between the teleprompter and improv as well as he did. His teleprompter reading was very high energy, much more natural and organic to his delivery than he normally does. That's just it's effective presentation. It doesn't matter if you liked what he said or you didn't. Second, I guarantee you, from the reaction I got and just knowing the Republican Party, this will inspire Republicans. Whether you think it's going to win over independents, whether you think it's going to change any minds in the country, Republicans in that room, state chairs, other people running for office, they're going to say, yeah, this guy's been our leader for 10 years. That's a message we could live with. Because he talked mostly about issues that the press sometimes will say are MAGA issues, when in fact they're issues that are very popular with independents in this country. And then lastly, the moment, Nikki, that you highlighted, when he says explicitly, normally presidents wait to see who applauds and maybe throws a look at their face and say, why didn't you applaud for that? He said in advance, everyone in the country is watching. You're their elected representatives. Do you think the government has a higher obligation to American citizens than it does to people in the country illegally? Knowing that the Democrats would probably not stand, and they didn't. And that moment will be used by Republicans the entire year, because on that issue, they're on the right side of public opinion, without a doubt. Few other things to mention.
Session of the two houses now dissolved.
Okay, president's left the hall, president's out of the hall. That starts the countdown clock. So we'll be covering Governor Spanberger's remarks in just a minute. A few other things to tell you about. We believe a couple people were ejected from the speech. Nikki, can you talk about that?
Yeah, that's so my understanding, and let me make sure that I have her name correct. It's Aliyah Rahman, and she was sort of known as this woman. She was autistic. She was pulled out of the car by ICE. The story went viral. I believe she appeared before Congress, but I would have to double check on that. And I also believe that she was a guest of Ilhan Omar. And there are still photos of her being ejected from the House chamber. So we know of at least one ejection outside of Representative Green. And then in another kind of interesting moment, whenever President Trump was talking about trans children, Representative Tlaib apparently yelled up toward him and said, if you actually cared about keeping children safe, you would have released the Epstein files. So that was what our colleague Victoria Churchill, who is in the chamber tonight, reported. And so, a bit of a chaotic moment there.
Yeah. Jon Michael, the Democrats applauded on occasion, and when they did, in part, it was because reality TV producer knows how to produce TV. I don't know that this has been done before. I don't recall it, but rather than simply recognizing people in the First Lady's box, the president would, as he did with the U.S. hockey team, and then at several other occasions, basically said, come on down, like he was the host of The Price is Right. The doors to the back and the balcony where the First Lady's boxes would open. Someone would come in, the president would explain who they were, they might get a medal, they might just get a standing ovation. Talk about the theatrics of just how the thing was stage managed.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of strikes me as a scene out of Shark Tank or something, right? The big doors open, the big reveal happens, and the star of the hour gets to walk in. And not only that, but the president gets to announce them and kind of build the suspense. So it definitely had some sort of harkening back to his reality TV show days when he was the host of The Apprentice. And it definitely kept the entire speech more engaging. I think that, adding some tactics like that kind of break up the normal cadence of the speech, which can kind of drone on. Obviously, it's the longest speech, as we discussed, in State of the Union history, over an hour and 40 minutes, an hour and 42 minutes, something like that. So just to keep people engaged and to keep them watching, I think that the president knows that he's got to entertain them as well. And so, harkening back to his TV days, he pulled out some tricks and let them walk down with the lights, camera, and action.
And even like whenever he would just sort of occasionally again jab at the Democrats and be like, and be sort of a comedian at that point. Be like, oh, they're not standing again. I can't believe these guys aren't standing. There they go again. I mean, it just sort of drew attention to what was going on in the chamber, but in kind of a more interesting way than we usually see in these types of speeches.
Yep. So let
And
me
with the
just
hockey team
go ahead.
too. I mean,
Go ahead.
he almost started screaming at that point, right? Like I'm not sure if you guys remember that, but he really raised his voice and got
Yeah.
super excited for the hockey team to be led into the chamber. And it was interesting to see them. They were actually in the press section right behind him. So to see all the reporters kind of the surprised look on their faces as the aisles were full of these massive hockey players in the USA Polo sweaters, you know, it was quite the moment.
Yep. 108-minute speech breaks the record for longest State of the Union. Let me just reset where we are. You're watching coverage of Two-Way and our colleagues, partners at the Daily Mail. And we'll be back with you after we hear the Democratic response from Governor Spanberger of Virginia. We want to hear what you think, whether you're watching on YouTube or X or TikTok. You can watch there. But if you want to participate in the conversation, come on the Two-Way platform. Go to twoway.tv. You can register and join us here. We would love for you to raise your hand and tell us either what you thought of the speech or what you liked, what you didn't, but also if you've got questions for Nikki or for Jon Michael, they'd love to take your questions. So you're going to have an opportunity to do that when the speech starts, and it'll be starting pretty soon. We'll take that in full. Won't be as long as the president's speech, I can promise.
Let's hope.
That. Yeah, and then
Fingers
we'll be right back here and eager to take your questions. This is. We call them conversations like no other. You see me looking slightly off camera so often. I'm watching coverage on cable news, and what you're seeing on cable news is 6 or so pundits sitting around a desk talking to each other. That's good. That's instructive. But this is different. This is an opportunity for you to weigh in. You can ask us questions, or you can make your own points. We'll have some highlights for you from the speech, particularly that moment about the president basically daring the Democrats not to stand up. Want to show you that, and we'll show you a few others. But overall, okay, let's go now. Here's the governor of Virginia, Governor Spanberger. Let's watch her, and then we'll be right back with you. Just a moment, she gets underway.
A nation that would be an example for the world. And this year, as we celebrate 250 years since America declared our independence from tyranny, I can think of no better place to speak to you as we reflect on the current state of our union. Tonight, as we watched our nation's lawmakers gather for a joint session of Congress, we did not hear the truth from our president. So let's speak plainly and honestly. And let me ask you, the American people watching at home, 3 questions. Is the president working to make life more affordable for you and your family? Is the president working to keep Americans safe both at home and abroad? Is the president working for you? As I campaigned for governor last year, I traveled to every corner of Virginia, and I heard the same pressing concern everywhere. Costs are too high in housing, healthcare, energy, and childcare. And I know these same conversations are being had all across this country. Because since this president took office last year, his reckless trade policies have forced American families to pay more than $1,700 each in tariff costs. Small businesses have suffered, farmers have suffered, some losing entire markets. Everyday Americans are paying the price. And even though the Supreme Court struck these tariffs down 4 days ago, the damage to us, the American people, has already been done. Meanwhile, the president is planning for new tariffs, another massive tax hike on you and your family. And Republicans in Congress, they remain unwilling to assert their constitutional authority to stop him. They're making your life harder. They're making your life more expensive. They're even making it more difficult to see a doctor. Rural health clinics in Virginia and across the country are already closing their doors thanks to the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill, championed by the president and Republicans in Congress. And tonight, the president celebrated this law, the one threatening rural hospitals, stripping healthcare from millions of Americans and driving up costs in energy and housing, all while cutting food programs for hungry kids. But here in Virginia, I am working with our state legislature to lower costs and make the Commonwealth more affordable. And it's not just me. Democrats across the country are laser focused on affordability in our nation's capital and in state capitals and communities across America. In the most innovative and exceptional nation in the history of the world, Americans deserve to know that their leaders are focused on addressing the problems that keep them up at night. Problems that dictate where you live, whether you can afford to start a business, or whether you have to skip a prescription in order to buy groceries. So I'll ask again, is the president working to make life more affordable for you and your family? We all know the answer is no. I grew up in a house of service. My mother was a nurse, and my father was a career law enforcement officer. I began my career by following in my father's footsteps as a federal agent, working money laundering and narcotics cases. I worked side by side with local and state police to keep our community safe and to uphold and enforce the law. Law enforcement officers across the country know that it is a unique responsibility to do the serious work of investigating crimes, comforting victims, and making arrests. It's about building trust, and that requires an abiding sense of duty and commitment to community. And yet, our president has sent poorly trained federal agents into our cities, where they have arrested and detained American citizens and people who aspire to be Americans. And they have done it without a warrant. They have ripped nursing mothers away from their babies. They have sent children, a little boy in a blue bunny hat, children to far-off detention centers. And they have killed American citizens in our streets. And they have done it all with their faces masked from accountability. Every minute spent sowing fear is a minute not spent investigating murders, crimes against children, or the criminals defrauding seniors of their life savings. Our president told us tonight that we are safer because these agents arrest mothers and detain children. Think about that. Our broken immigration system is something to be fixed, not an excuse for unaccountable agents to terrorize our communities. After working in law enforcement, I continued my career of service as a CIA officer, working undercover to protect the United States and our allies from global threats, terrorism, nuclear weapons, and the aggression of adversarial nations around the globe. But as the president spoke of his perceived successes tonight, he continues to cede economic power and technological strength to Russia, bow down to China, bow down to a Russian dictator, and make plans for war with Iran. Here's the truth. Over the last year, through DOJ, mass firings, and the appointment of deeply unserious people to our nation's most serious positions, our president has endangered the long and storied history of the United States of America being a force for good. So I'll ask again, is the president working to keep Americans safe, both at home and abroad? We all know the answer is no. In his speech tonight, the president did what he always does. He lied, he scapegoated, and he distracted. And he offered no real solutions to our nation's pressing challenges, so many of which he is actively making worse. He tries to divide us. He tries to enrage us, to pit us against one another, neighbor against neighbor. and sometimes he succeeds. And so you have to ask, who benefits from his rhetoric, his policies, his actions, the short list of laws he's pushed through this Republican Congress? Somebody must be benefiting. He's enriching himself, his family, his friends. The scale of the corruption is unprecedented. There's the cover-up of the Epstein files, the crypto scams, cozying up to foreign princes for airplanes and billionaires for ballrooms, putting his name and face on buildings all over our nation's capital. This is not what our founders envisioned, not by a long shot. So I'll ask again, is the president working for you? We all know the answer is no. But here's the special thing about America. On our 250th anniversary, we know better than any nation what is possible when ordinary citizens, like those who once dreamed right here in this room, reject the unacceptable and demand more of their government. We see it in the determination of students organizing school walkouts all across the country, whose voices are becoming so powerful that the governor of Texas seeks to silence them. We see it in the bravery of Americans in Minnesota standing up for their communities, from peacefully protesting in sub-zero temperatures to carpooling children to school so that their immigrant parents are not ripped away from them in the parking lot. As a mother of 3 school-aged daughters, I am inspired by their bravery, but I am sickened that it is necessary. And Americans across the country are taking action. They are going to the ballot box to reject this chaos. With their votes, they are writing a new story, a more hopeful story. In November, I won my election by 15 points. And we won 13 new seats in our state legislature. Because voters decided they wanted something different. Our campaign earned votes from Democrats, Republicans, independents, and everyone in between. Because they knew as citizens they could demand more, that they could vote for what they believe matters, and that they didn't need to be constrained by a party or political affiliation. This is happening across the country. New Jersey elected Mikey Sherrill as governor in a double-digit victory. Democrats flipped state legislative seats in places like Georgia, Iowa, Mississippi, and Texas. The list goes on and on. Ordinary Americans are stepping up to run in the spirit of our forefathers. They are running to demand more and to do more for their neighbors and communities. I know this story well. I first ran for office in 2018 alongside dozens of other Democrats who did the seemingly impossible, flipping 41 seats in Congress. In my case, I was the first Democrat elected in 50 years, swinging our district 17 points. Those who are stepping up now to run will win in November because Americans, you at home, know you can demand more and that we are working to lower costs. We are working to keep our communities and our country safe, and we are working for you. In his farewell address, George Washington warned us about the possibility of, quote, cunning, ambitious, and unprincipled men rising to power. But he also encouraged us, all Americans, to unite in a common cause, to move this nation forward. That is our charge once more, and that is what we are seeing across the country. It is deeply American and patriotic to do so, and it is how we ensure that the state of our union remains strong, not just this year, but for the next 250 years as well, because we, the people, have the power to make change, the power to stand up for what is right, the power to demand more of our nation. May God bless the Commonwealth of Virginia, and may God bless the United States of America.
Always a tough assignment. I would say she had a nice audience with her. It wasn't in a quiet room, and obviously friendly supporters. So not sure what impact it will have on the future of America or the planet, but I thought she did quite well. Nikki, thoughts about that?
Yeah, I would agree with you, Mark. I mean, I know that these speeches are extremely difficult and they've been rife for gaffes, for awkward moments in the past. We had Marco Rubio with that weird water bottle situation. We had Representative Kennedy where he had like this really kind of awful chapstick on that like everyone was just sort of staring at him the whole time, watching that instead of what he was saying. We had Bobby Jindal's speech that was kind of a mess as well. So I think the Democrats will be happy with that. I don't know if any other Democrat could do much better. As far as strong moments in it, I think that the quote about Trump and his cabinet being sort of deeply unserious people, I think that resonated. And then also just sort of the corruption comments she made about the ballroom and about the jumbo jet that's going to be Air Force One. I think those kind of messages will help Democrats potentially in November. So those are the things that stuck out to me.
Jon Michael, I think it's fair to say she didn't like the speech as much as Stephen Miller, whose 3-word tweet was, "Best so to ever."
Well, I think Stephen Miller's obviously got to root for the home team here, and is showing his cards because he's got to support whatever the president does. But as for Abigail Spanberger's speech, I think that her overall theme was a good rebuttal to Trump's theme. Trump loves to talk about himself and his accomplishments. I think her line was, "Is the president working for you?" I think the answer is no, and then she rounded it out with how the Democrats are working for you. So kind of a cohesive theme, at least. And then she obviously went through some of the president's personal baggage, which he would never touch in the State of the Union. Nikki talked about this, the crypto schemes and his involvement in that, Epstein putting his name all over buildings across the nation's capital, and bringing up the question, did the founding fathers believe that there would be a president that wanted to name all these different motifs around the city after himself? So though it's, kind of a blip on the map, just 10 minutes or 15 minutes or something like that compared to Trump's almost 2-hour-long speech, it did have a salient, coherent point, which I think really questioned the president's more controversial parts.
Yeah. If you're grading him on the metric that the media and a lot of Republicans set up, did he talk enough about the economy? The answer is yes. He talked plenty about the economy, both what the Republicans want to run on that they've already done and propose some new things on healthcare, on housing, on savings accounts, and other things that would help families. Let's go to community questions again. Just as you unmute, tell us where you are, and either tell us what you thought of the speech or ask a question. And again, if you're here on the platform, maybe for the first time, all you need to do is raise your electronic hand and get in the queue to ask a question. Let's go to John. John, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind for Nikki and for Jon Michael.
Well, hey there. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm in my kids' playroom right now, and everyone's in bed. But we're doing great. Yeah, I think that was, it was a speech for the modern age. I don't think it was meant to be consumed linearly as much as it was to create viral moments and to sort of create clippable moments for your social media. And that's where Trump excels, frankly, as a producer, a television producer. He created a lot of viral moments. I think people on the right will think this is great, America's back, Stephen Miller-esque, and people on the left will think patriotism is the last refuge of a scoundrel, like Samuel Johnson said in 1775, right? So people in the middle can't stand either party, and they will look at both speeches and think, neither of you care anything about me at all. I think on policy, the three most interesting policy things from the independent perspective were the data center and electricity question, sort of clarifying that, the private equity and home ownership question, clarifying that, because that sort of went out, came back, went out, came back, and then the insider trading, because that's something that the Republican Congress has been a little bit hesitant on. So I think policy-wise, those three items were the most interesting to me. The rest was sort of as expected, and I don't think changed minds either way. My question for the panelists, just something I've been thinking about a lot, and as an independent, thinking about it here tonight. in the lifetime ago that was the election run up 18 months ago, there was so much talk about sort of the manosphere podcasts, right? All supporting Trump, right? You have the flagrant guys and Rogan and Sean Ryan and Theo Vaughn, and pretty much universally, they've all been pretty adamantly opposed to a lot of what is going on in the administration recently with Epstein, with immigration, with Iran, and there's been a clear pivot. And I'm just trying to understand. The administration seemed really, really good at tapping into the youth's energy leading up to the election and sort of being very in tune with it. And obviously, they're still hearing all of this. Obviously, they know these podcasts. They use them to great effect. Are they aware of the erosion of support amongst independents and young people, as the polling suggests? But are they aware of it deeply?
It's a great question, John. Nikki, I'd love for you to add to John's question. Did he talk about anything tonight that would appeal to the broadcasters and the young people who the Republicans need to remobilize? Anything that stands out to you?
That's a good question. I mean, I was going to say, this is terrible to say, but the moment with the hockey players, I'm sure, got people excited, but not obviously on a policy side of things. But I mean, I guess, decreasing the cost of healthcare, housing, those types of things, that's across the board for every American. But I am trying to think if there's anything in particular.
Yeah. Jon Michael, anything comes to mind for you?
The one thing that maybe would be supported in the manospheres, as John with a very strong name said, is that, the Nancy Pelosi line about the stock trading. Congress, the Republican-held Congress has really waffled on this issue. Some people even ran for office in 2024 saying that they were going to ban it. They've not done it. They've not been able to find consensus. Johnson's been on the back foot on this issue. It is a really popular issue amongst younger voters. It's a very popular issue amongst most voters, let alone younger voters. But anyways, beyond that, I think another thing that would try to appeal to the younger voters are, as Nikki said, some of the comments regarding housing. I think that's been like a perennial issue for people that are millennials or, 40 and younger, trying to get their own home. And these mortgage rates, which have been fairly high or historically high for the last couple of years. Point I'm trying to make is that, there's a lot of different ways he could approach the manosphere and like get reingratiated with Joe Rogan and Theo Vaughn and all these folks. But, he hasn't had sit downs with them since he was on the campaign trail. So it seems almost as though those relationships were more so for, the campaign and not so much as, friends or relationships that he would keep around and actually listen to policy proposals. I don't think he's talking to Joe Rogan, listening to him for healthcare proposals, if you will, as opposed to just using his platform to get elected.
Yeah. John, they are aware of the problem, although it's not clear to me that they have a solution for it. I'll cite one other thing that does appeal to some young men. A reference to Charlie Kirk and the recognition of Erica Kirk and talking about the need to honor Charlie Kirk. That plays well with a certain segment of that subgroup for sure. Nikki, you were going to say something.
So also the political reality is Trump is not on the ballot anymore. So they don't necessarily need to hold together their coalition, but also it is important for them to hold together their coalition because how else are they retain Congress in the fall? So, I mean, they're going to have to figure, something out to help their Republican candidates on the ballot.
Yeah. John, thank you. Grateful to you for being part of Two-Way. Let's welcome in Kelly. Kelly, welcome in. Unmute yourself if you haven't. There you go. And tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind for Nikki and for Jon Michael.
Hi, guys. I'm Kelly Jordan. I'm actually in the JFK airport. Been here trying to get out after the storm for a few days. Yeah. So one of the things I would have liked to hear more about was education. I wouldn't have raised my hand and commented about this until in Spamberger's rebuttal, she said, students are walking out, protesting, walking out. We have in my opinion, a major crisis with, the fact that, excuse me, I'm sorry. But only 70% of our students can't read and write proficiently. And I'm a little disappointed in the Trump administration. And, I feel like he's not delivering on what he ran on. And then on Spamberger's side, I don't see that as a flex. I see bragging about students walking out as deeply concerned. So I don't know if you guys
Jon Michael.
Yeah, the Trump administration has talked a lot about school choice. I don't think that we've seen a lot of traction on that issue. There's also the stats that you're kind of citing, the cost per pupil in a lot of public school areas, namely Baltimore. I did some reporting on this a couple of years ago. It's like $21,000 or it was, I want to say a couple years ago, per student per year. And then when you're spending $21,000 per student for them to be, a year or two behind in reading or writing, it is a dire situation. And then pair that on the backdrop with Trump talking about how he wants his Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, to put herself out of a job. Kind of this ambiguous, are we going to go forward with the Department of Education? Are we going to wind it down? It's still around. So, to your concern, I think it has been a little opaque what the administration is doing on education, other than just bringing up every now and again school choice and kind of using that catchphrase, even though it doesn't, at least to my knowledge, they haven't done too much on that, though. Maybe I'm wrong and missed a headline here or there.
And to your points about those stats, like fourth graders in Mississippi now read and write more proficiently than in New York and California, according to, the latest round of federal testing. And New York spends 3 times as much.
Nikki, anything to add?
Well, one thing that Trump sort of didn't spend a lot of time on, but was supposed to be sort of an ambassador for sort of newfangled education, was one of Melania Trump's guests. There was a 10-year-old named Everest Nevermont, and she was Melania's guest because she's using AI to assist in her education plan. And so, usually I think the president would have perhaps, and maybe this was an accident, spent more time on that. But, before the speech, obviously, it was reported quite a bit about how this young girl was going to be Melania's guest and highlighting how, AI could be potentially used to, improve children's education. This little girl was visited by Linda McMahon in September and said that she had been at first reading it at 4th grade level and now is at a 9th grade level. So just sort of showing the potency of, this emerging tech.
Yeah.
Kelly, very grateful to you for being part of Two-Way and very much hope you're able to get a flight out of there. Thank you
Looking
so much.
good. Yeah.
Grateful to you. Jason, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind for Nikki and for Jon Michael.
Yeah, I'm from Eugene, Oregon, and I just watching that, it looked like Trump was more of the happy warrior today. Like he was just had a really good positive attitude, positive energy on that side. The Democrats came off as just angry and bitter. And, I was telling my friend, the only way that it could get any worse for the Democrats is if their responder, the person giving the response speech, had like a fake audience with like an applaud sign almost. And it happened. And I was like, whoa, no way. I think it's just a bad night altogether for the Democrats, altogether.
Jason, let me, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
So how can Susie Wiles keep that Trump out in public? I mean, how do you do that? Because if you have that Trump 365 days a year, the Democrats would have no hope.
Yeah. So when we say that Trump, Jason, it's an interesting question. We talked about some of this a bit earlier. He didn't blast the Supreme Court the way he could have. He was pretty restrained. Same on Joe Biden. Didn't blast him. Did call, as was pointed out, the Democratic Party. What did he say? They were liars. Is that what he called them? Crazy. Called them crazy. But he was good humored. He read the teleprompter as well as I've seen him do it, maybe ever. And obviously very high energy and stayed focused on message for the most part. So it is an interesting question. I reported that last week the Trump political team told the cabinet, don't expect the president to stay on message as a general matter. We have to stay on message. So you guys, both Nikki and Jon Michael, you guys cover him regularly. Is this something that you think he's going to have the eye of the tiger and stay with the discipline as he goes around the country? I'll say, unlike most presidents historically, he has no travel tomorrow, no public events right now in his schedule. He's not, going to some battleground state to barnstorm. But Nikki, you first. Do you expect the president can be convinced that if he gets good reviews, which I believe he will, at least from the Reds, that this will inspire him to be more like this typically?
I mean, no, I think that, once he gets back out on the road and it's more rally-like, venue, then he'll probably go back to, tarring and feathering like people by name and using the silly nicknames. I mean, I do think that you could point to his poll numbers and point to the good reviews, and that'll keep him on message for, a bit of time. But the original plan going into this year was he was supposed to be in a different state, I think once a week, to give one of these economic focused speeches. And that hasn't really panned out. And I wonder, and I'm not sure from my own reporting, but I would surmise that it's in part because when he has given some of these speeches, they've gone a bit off message. And in the first one, he, said some wildly racist things about Ilhan Omar. So I think that, perhaps for a little bit, maybe he can stay on message, but I've never seen the man really be able to sustain that for a long period of time.
Yeah. Jon Michael,
Yeah.
your thoughts?
Well, this is also a very manufactured venue, and so it's easy for Trump to look and sound his best when everyone's trying their hardest to make sure that he does, right? There's no reporter questions that he has to take or interactions that he really has to do. Now, to give him credit, it seems like he handled that protest from Al Green right in his face fairly gracefully. And to your point, right, he seemed like a happy warrior. When he was kind of barbing with some of the Democrats in the audience, he wasn't scowling or, making nasty faces or grunting at them. A lot of times he was kind of smiling, poking fun how they weren't standing, and, kept, kind of have had some levity to it as opposed to seeming, very harsh. So I think that's probably a positive for him is, people are watching him and, assessing whether or not he's the same, perhaps perceived as vindictive or very intense kind of president that people saw during the first term. It does seem like this time around he was a little bit more relaxed with his speech.
Jason, I think go ahead.
He needed this because I feel like after Charlie Kirk was killed, him and Vance got really angry. Like there was kind of an anger in their speeches and stuff. And I feel like if they can regain that positive energy they had at the end of the election, that they really could have a good, strong midterm, but they cannot do it if they have that kind of angry tone that they've had after Charlie Kirk's death.
Yeah. Jason, I'll say that if Susie Wiles said to the president, why can't you do this more? He'd say, bring me Nancy Pelosi and the squad on the road with me and let me play off of them. and I can be good humored. Jason, thank you for being part of Two Way. Thank you for coming on. Just to give you an idea of what's going on cable, Sean Hannity is hosting Fox's post-speech show. He's had Speaker Johnson and Ted Cruz. CNN has had Secretary Duffy on, as well as Nancy Pelosi, and Senator Warnock is on with Rachel Maddow on MSNBC.
Did Pelosi get asked about Trump's comment?
Didn't hear.
No?
Didn't hear. Only saw because I'm talking to you. Jen, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind for Nikki and for Jon Michael.
Well, I enjoyed probably both speeches. I thought about Abigail Spanberger's speech. One of the things that I thought was good was that it was very pro-America and American history. It wasn't, oh, we hate America. We're such terrible colonizers. We should be ashamed of every American, drop of blood in our veins kind of thing. I thought she was very positive, very upbeat. I'm not aligned with her politically, but I thought she did a good job.
Jen, what were your favorite parts of the president's speech?
I thought it was a celebration of people, and I think he does that very well. I was stunned by the 200-year-old soldiers, and that one, I guess he's not 100 until July 4th or whatever, but he stood for every ovation. I couldn't have done that.
Yeah.
I was stunned.
Yeah.
And I really liked the emphasis on people, on celebrating people, celebrating their achievements, especially when so much of them had to do with heroism.
Yeah.
I think that's a good tone for the 250, and 50th anniversary. There's bound to be a name for what kind of a anniversary that is, but I don't know it.
Jen, thank you. Grateful
All
to you
right,
for being part of Two Way. Thank you. Okay. Here is Fred. Fred, welcome in. Thanks for being here. Tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind.
I'm in Nevada, northern Nevada. And I was pretty impressed with the speech. I didn't expect that.
Fred, we're getting a little bit of an echo on your end. I don't know if you can turn your speaker down, maybe.
Let me see if
Fred is frozen, maybe. Fred, we're going to bring you back once you've figured that out. Let's bring in Ryan. Ryan, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind for Jon Michael and for Nikki.
Hello, everyone. Out in California. As far as positives, and I'll couch it that I lean left. Positives from the speech Mr. Trump gave. I thought bringing up the funds for children, investment funds. I thought that was very positive. Um, I thought that his mention of healthcare fell flat from my perspective. It's been more than 10 years now, and there still is not a coherent plan. All we hear is Unaffordable Care Act, and that was a bit disappointing from the perspective of, I guess, a good and a bad aspect of what I heard from Mr. Trump.
Yeah, Ryan, did you find yourself cheering at any point?
If I was able to, yes, I would have clapped for Team USA.
Yeah.
The kids' investment accounts, I think that is a good idea.
Yeah.
How
did you feel when he said Marco Rubio will go down as the greatest Secretary of State of all time?
I think time will tell. I can't say that today. I think getting Maduro out of Venezuela and the way that it's occurred so far, I'm optimistic. I cannot say that I am fully bought into that plan and the long-term effects. But I think the president has put a lot of pressure on Mexico. What hasn't been mentioned is the capture of El Mencho from the New Generation Cartel. But I think Marco Rubio could be seen as a very good Secretary of State ultimately.
Okay, Jon Michael, question for Ryan or comment?
Yeah, I was curious, what do you think about the Iran situation? If you're kind of on the fence about Maduro, what would you like to see the president do regarding Iran and the buildup that's already going on over there?
Yeah, I mean, it's a cautionary tale from my perspective. This is the largest military buildup that we've had in the last 25 years in the Middle East, and just that alone is a bit concerning to me. There was a bit of back and forth in the chat during that portion of the speech, and I'm a bit skeptical about putting, even if it's quote unquote not boots on the ground, with that amount of military buildup that we have in that arena. We're putting people in harm's way, our troops in harm's way, and that's of concern to me, especially without getting official congressional approval.
Nikki,
What did you think about Spanberger's speech and her message?
I thought it was good. I think she hit the low-hanging fruit. The one thing I do wish, in addition to some of her other points, the pardons that have occurred are just absolutely unconscionable to me. But I can also, from a political perspective, understand why she didn't mention it because of the Biden administration.
Yeah.
There was a give and take in my mind there.
Brian, grateful to you for being part of Two Way. Thank you for coming on and sharing all that. Okay. Fred, let's try again. Unmute. Hopefully there'll be just one Fred and not several. Go ahead.
So you got one now?
Yes, sir. Tell folks where you are and what's on your
near
mind.
Lake Tahoe in northern Nevada, and I thought the production was one of the best Trump's done. I didn't expect it. A lot of the people I know are very strong Trumpsters. I think he also tonight hit some specifics on different issues where the governor did not. Once again, no policies from the Democrats. And she showed a little bit of her own narcissism, telling us all about how she won and what she did. And it was kind of I thought that made Trump look even better. Biggest problem I have with both of them is they talk about generalized policies. And when we listen to some of the people in the meeting here, in education, it's pretty straightforward. It's been pretty well proven out by the neuroscientists that we have too much technology in the schools, and the Gen Z people are the first group to ever fall behind. And they have been behind on every cognitive measure, 100% of them. So there are specific things that can be done in education. He hit health care, and he's talking about the insurance companies, but it's pretty hard to believe you got a $5.6 trillion healthcare system. Net profit for the insurance companies last year was 1.2 trillion. And you're going to take that away from them?
Yeah.
And 130 billion in drugs.
Yep.
So to fix healthcare, nobody's giving any specifics. And the biggest problem I have with both of them is industry and the corporations are running everything, and they're all their buddies.
Yeah, thank you for that. Nikki, the president, by my recollection, hit corporates at least a couple times, once on this housing issue of whether these investment banks can own, private equity firms can own lots of
like residential
homes.
houses.
Yeah. Second is on saying that the AI companies have to pay for the electricity, and then it's not quite exactly the same, but the issue of it is, but the issue of the pharmaceutical companies and lowering prescription drug prices. So thoughts on what Fred said? Question for Fred about the education issue and about the corporate issues and healthcare.
Well, I just agree with him saying that, you know, the healthcare stuff that Trump's put out there just seems very disconnected, right? He talks about Trump RX, and that's one entity. Then he talks about, you know, landing most favored nation pricing, which is kind of this ambiguous, you know, what does this mean for me to the everyday American kind of topic. But he's had a hard time marrying all of these initiatives together into one cohesive plan. And, you know, Democrats also saw this as a huge opportunity. They shut down the government, or not just Democrats, Republicans did too as well late last year over the topic of healthcare and the rising premiums. So to you feeling not so satisfied about the cohesive message on healthcare, I just, you know, say that I think it has been a little bit all over the place, and they need to hone in on kind of grabbing all of their different policy objectives and then working on the messaging under one umbrella, because it's too disparate right now.
Nikki,
they need another big beautiful bill, but for healthcare. And if it's just happening in the White House without congressional buy-in, you know, that's, I think, part of the disconnect is that, you know, the Hill's not going to tackle it right now, especially before these elections.
Yeah, Fred, grateful to you for being part of Two Way. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for fixing the audio. We're going to spend a little bit more time with you. If you want to get in on the conversation and you don't have your hand up now, whether you've been part of the community before or not, we'd love to have you. Please raise your hand if you want to come on in. David, welcome in. Unmute, tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind for our colleagues from the Daily Mail.
Yeah, one question. Why do you have Abigail Spanberger as your responser when she has turned out to be a complete leftist?
Yeah.
I mean, she ran as a moderate. I remember 2 years ago, she was bitching about the fact that the Democrats were too far left and they needed to get back to being moderate.
Yeah.
And then she gets in office and I don't think she disavowed everything she believed. I think what she did was what she believes.
Yeah.
And then you have this person coming in there, and I've been listening to what everybody thought about her, and all you guys are talking about is how great a presentation she did. So what?
Well,
I mean, if I lived in Virginia right now, I would be furious.
Yeah. Well, we've said the same thing about the president. You're not going to hold the attention of a primetime audience, or in the case of the governor, slightly after primetime in the East, because the president went so long, without a good presentation. But there's no doubt that you're right that as she started as governor of Virginia, she's done some high-profile things that are to the left of what a lot of people's impression of her were. She's still relatively moderate by the standards of today's Democratic Party. Nikki, thoughts on David's question about the governor?
I mean, I think that, she was picked because she was a success story electorally last year. One of two, Democratic governors, New Jersey, Virginia, that were elected. But David, you make a solid point, because when I talk to my conservative friends in Virginia, they are like not happy right now about her first couple of weeks in office. But also, she might have been picked a couple of weeks ago before some of that stuff sort of reverberated through the Twitter sphere.
Jon Michael.
Yeah, I know that she's been catching some flack online for the redistricting push, I believe, after explicitly saying that she wouldn't. Now, I think that's kind of par for the course for politicians in general, right? You look at all the redistricting stuff going on elsewhere in both red and blue states, right? You say something before you get elected, and you do the opposite. I don't think that's just specific to Spanberger, though it is, not savory. It doesn't look good on the record.
Well,
David, sorry, I apologize. Go ahead and unmute again, David. I didn't mean to mute you. One more time, David.
can I say one more thing?
Yes, sir.
It's not about redistricting. She's I don't know the specific thing, but it's about the energy tax that she did. She went totally green, which I think if somebody would have asked her that question, here's the thing that just, and Rush always said this, Rush Limbaugh always said this, Democrats have to lie to get elected. If they come out and say what they want to do, they can't get elected, so they lie to do it. And then once they get in office, they do what Spanberger's done. And conservatives like me, we'll pretty much tell you what we want to do to get elected, and we don't have to lie about it.
David, what Donald Trump say he would do about health care when he ran for president compared to what he's done?
I think health care is it's a great big ball of twine.
Yeah, I'm just saying I don't think you can exempt Donald Trump from not telling the truth about what he would do as president before he got elected compared to the governor of Virginia.
Look, I think everybody lies about health care.
Yeah. Okay. David, thank you. Grateful to you for being part of it. I want to ask you both real quick about the Rubio moment. The president, loves to toy with things, and he gave the vice president a new assignment tonight to oversee the fraud investigations, although he was sort of in charge of that before, but he sort of re-upped him. But he gave a pretty major shout out to the Secretary of State and paused and let the room swell for him. I'm wondering, Jon Michael, what you thought of that and whether that's just the president kind of goofing around or he wanted to continue to get the Vance-Rubio sweepstakes all hyped up.
Well, I think that it's part of the show, but also has an air of truth to it. A lot of the people that I've talked to in the administration, staffers, and more high-ranking officials have all had amazing things to say about Rubio. He's kind of the untouchable golden boy in the Trump administration right now, right? Like Vance has his place, but Rubio's been given a much more robust portfolio. I mean, look at how many jobs he has. He's running USAID, which we didn't even know really what that was before last year. He's running the State Department. He's running the archives and so much more. I think the bid for Miami to get the some sort of like symposium or something, the World's Fair. So there's so many hats that he's wearing, and he seems to be doing a decent job, juggling all these things. And as I've been told by some people, there's even like a group chat amongst the cabinet members where they send Rubio those memes of himself just kind of looking like he's getting a new job, and it's this running joke inside the administration, I've been told. So I think his stock is, totally ascendant right now, and Trump is clearly was giving him his flowers at a very high-profile moment, elevating his profile and giving him a lot of applause from the audience, who seemed very much in approval or in step with President Trump and his assessment of Rubio's job.
Yeah, Nikki, I have to say that was brilliantly said. I don't know if you want to try to add to that or even top it, but I want to let Jon Michael drop the mic on that. Rubio.
I mean, that was pretty dang good. No, I just was going to say that with Rubio, I think whenever Trump highlights Rubio's accomplishments, perhaps he's sort of trying to tease that there might be some kind of 2028 drama with Vance and Rubio. But then when you talk to people in his inner circle, it seems like a lot of Republicans want to simply see Vance as their guy and Rubio as their VP, and they know that to be, or they believe that to be unstoppable, whenever the Democrats potentially could be in disarray in their own sort of primary cycle.
Yeah, I'm wondering the sort of follow through here, because the speech is just words. For instance, on the stock trading, banning members of Congress from stock trading, that's been stalled in the U.S. House. Healthcare is not moving in the Republican-led Congress. The housing bill may or may not have this provision related to private equity. Do you see anything the president said tonight moving as those things that require Congress to act? Do you see anything moving based on what he pitched tonight?
I think that the comments on the trading will give reporters like myself and some of my colleagues up on the Hill a little bit more ammo to go back to these lawmakers and pressure them. I mean, this has been an ongoing story for so long, and it just continuously gets swept under the rug because of a little bit of reporter fatigue. You can only ask the question so many times and get the same answer. But when the president comes out and full-throated says, we want to ban this practice, there's an air of, of this being unfair, and he's not going to stand for it anymore. It really gives reporters a cudgel to go up to these lawmakers and say, what are you guys going to do, right? You guys support President Trump, or at least Republicans. They support President Trump in almost everything. Why would you not support him in banning stock trading for members of Congress? So I'm excited to see how that moves the needle a little bit.
I will buy you an egg cream and a Nathan's hot dog if that moves the needle to passage. Nikki, anything,
I hope so.
Anything you think moves on healthcare or housing or anything he proposed?
I mean, I think that at some point the Republicans are going to need to have, a better bill for healthcare to sort of show the American people if that messaging. I mean, our own viewers are saying that the healthcare messaging didn't work on them tonight. So,
yeah.
But I more so agree with Jon Michael that perhaps, especially because it was like that, that major moment where he was sort of knocking Nancy Pelosi, like that is a viral moment from this speech that then potentially could be used to move this legislation forward.
Yeah, and let's just talk about the Democrats here. They had their protest events outside the chamber. In the chamber, you saw some heckling and some protesting. You saw some applause for some things like the hockey team, but mostly they sat on their hands, although Elizabeth Warren applauded for the stock trading ban, which she's a supporter of. So if you take the totality of sort of how the Democrats, and of course Governor Spanberger, if you take the totality of how the Democrats reacted, Nikki, how would you rate their night and sort of how they did in being the opposition?
Well, they also did, I believe, give standing ovations to all the military members getting those accolades, which is important because something like that could really, really be a political pitfall. And I think that there has been a case in the past in which something of that like has happened at one of the State of the Unions, and that was very much able to be used against them. I mean, I would give them like a C-.
Yeah.
I think especially because that moment where they were seated and all the Republicans were standing whenever the president asked who they, cared about more, Americans or illegal immigrants. I mean, that's going to be in every single midterm attack ad. And I think that's going to really hurt them.
Jon Michael, on that point, which my inbox is filled with Republicans saying that was the moment of the night for them. Do you think if Schumer and Jeffries knew that was coming, they would have said stand up? Because I mean, I think probably most Democrats, as much as they have a different place in their heart and their head for people in the country legally, wouldn't they say the government has a higher obligation to support American citizens and people here illegally? And wouldn't most of their constituents say that? In other words, you think if they could get a mulligan on that, they would stand up and applaud that? Or they don't want to applaud for anything Donald Trump's for?
Well, I think it's just precarious for them to give marching orders to this wide swath of the Democratic Party that they don't really know how they're going to respond, right? Like, how do you tell people not to stand up or to stand up when you have Rashida Tlaib, mouthing off part of the time, and Al Green, who's going to bring out his sign? So there's a lot of these rogue folks who they just can't control. Now, when it comes to giving, orders to stand up, or if they knew ahead of time this was going to come, I'm sure there'd be, maybe some more that would stand up, but I don't think it would change the overall optics, because I think that the resistance party of the Democratic Party just wants to make, every opportunity to go and be combative with Trump, use it in their favor. So, do I think that if they knew that beforehand, that they would have, maybe avoided some bad midterm ads that are going to surely be coming down the pipeline? Maybe, but I don't think Schumer or Hakeem really have that kind of pull over their party to make sure that they stay in line in the first place.
Yeah, very grateful to all of you for watching with us tonight and having, as we say, conversations like no other. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and I learned a ton from the community, and very grateful to you for being with us. And of course, very grateful to our partners at the Daily Mail, including Jon Michael and Nikki. Thank you both for being part of the coverage this evening, and Wills Robinson was here with us earlier as well. 9 a.m. Eastern Time, the morning meeting will be here, and our guest hosts tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern, are Melissa DeRosa, Democratic strategist, and Mike Lawler, Republican congressman. We'll see what they have to say about the day's events, and we'll look forward, as we always do, question about the president's schedule. And two-way platform and on X and on YouTube, and then at 10 on SiriusXM. And then, of course, I'll be back tomorrow night, 5 o'clock Eastern for two-way tonight. Super grateful to the Daily Mail. Love the collaboration. Thank you both for being here. Everybody have a good night, and we'll see you in a few hours on the morning meeting, 9 a.m. Eastern time. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mark.
Mark.
Night, everybody.